개굴, 개굴, 개굴.
Hey everyone, give me just a second to put on a microphone here. It's gonna go, there's a bench over there I just saw. I'm gonna sit down for a second. How's everyone doing? Where's everyone watching from? Man, such nice weather, says David D. Clear blue sky, yes. It is right now, believe it or not, it is what's known as Changma, which is the rainy season every year in Korea. It's typically around June or July and it lasts about a month, where most days it's raining or cloudy at least. Today it's actually supposed to be raining the whole day, but I checked the weather report and now it shows rain in the afternoon, but not right now. It's like really bright, like beautiful. Like, look at that. Look at those clouds. Like really nice weather for today. So I don't think we're gonna see any rain during this live stream today. Just putting on a microphone so you'll be able to hear me a little better. Although, I mean, I'm sure you can hear me fine right now, but they're the memi, the cicadas or cicadas, depending on what part of the US you're from. They can get quite loud. Test, test. Can you hear me fine? Put this over on the other side. Sorry, I'm just moving around my phone here. There we go. Hopefully today I'm not going to hit the Bing button by accident. For those of you who know, you know. Okay. 잘 들어요. You'd want to say, well, I understand that. You'd want to actually say the verb 들리다, which is to be audible, to be able to hear something. It's the listening version of 보이다, which is to be visible, to be seen. So you'd want to say 잘 들려요, like you can hear well. Literally, it is audible, is what you're saying. Okay, I'm just reading all your comments here. Ness says, Billy, I've learned Hangul. What should my next step for learning Korean be? I have a free series on my channel. I can't link it. I don't have a keyboard right now, but it's called Beginner Korean Course, and it covers everything out after that. And I even have a, if you're wondering what to do then after that, which is 100 episodes, it should take you several months at least to get through that, even if you're going quickly. After that, I even have a new course I'm releasing. I'm still releasing. I'm up to episode 15, I think. I think I uploaded 15 last week. This week we should be 16. And there are 20 episodes in that, and that is a course you can use right after this beginner course. And it is completely 100% unfiltered, natural Korean conversations. I mean that. I don't mean like it's a natural style for learners, but I mean it's actually just literally how Koreans would speak, so for better or for worse. And that course is going up right now, so you can watch that after you finish the beginner course. And if you're wondering what to do after that, well, if you legitimately have if you're curious what to do after that course, well, that would be you start real conversations, because the level does go quite high on the course I'm doing right now. So you're pretty much set. Beginner course is where you can start. That'll take you all the way up to a solid beginner level, like not at the beginning part, but like, you know, you can clearly say, oh, I know the beginner stuff. And then from there, you can work your way up to natural conversation. So yeah, you're all the way into intermediate level. Again, completely free, and it's already up. I own the book. I recommend it. Thank you. Yeah, I also have a book which is not related to the video course. The book is a more standard, your textbook style, like here are the conversations, here's the audio for it, vocabulary you need, grammar forms, next lesson, like that sort of, the traditional style, which is good too. I mean, use as many resources as you can. So first of all, let me show you where we are. I am in Suwon again. Let me just sorry, microphone was like twisting around. I'm in Suwon, as I always am whenever I'm in Korea. It's always a live stream from Suwon. If you've been following my channel for a while, watching any of the live streams, you know what I'm talking about. It's like 90% of the live streams are from Suwon, because if I travel anywhere else, it's going to take over an hour. It takes about 50 minutes to get to Gangnam from Suwon. And other places in Seoul can be like an hour and a half, or at least over an hour. So Suwon at least everywhere is within like 30-40 minutes from anywhere else, which is nice. And I am at a park called Gwangyo Hosu Gongwon. So Hosu is lake, and so it's the Gwangyo Lake Park. And I've been here only like once, maybe twice before. I don't come here often, so I'm not that familiar with this place. So I'm just trying to kind of get my bearings so we don't get lost here. But yeah, I have been here probably about twice before. I definitely have been here once. I'm trying to think if I came here for a video before or not, or maybe I went somewhere else. I filmed a video here, I thought, but maybe it wasn't here, maybe it was somewhere else. Anyway, yeah, so, and I haven't been here in a very long time, so I'm kind of figuring out where I'm supposed to go, along with all of you. While you're watching, I'm curious, where's everyone watching from right now? Let's see, I think, yeah, there we go. I wish I could increase the contrast of my phone. Sometimes it's hard to read comments here. Okay, let's just stop here for a second. California, nice. Colombia, New Zealand, Seoul iPark Mall. Are you watching from the iPark Mall? Minnesota. Let's see if anyone else mentioned above. Okay, now let's scroll down and see where else. Okay, here we go. From here, Charlotte, North Carolina, public toilet, USA, New York, Florida, Kentucky. Watching from the USA, another US, Australia, New Jersey, Florida. I love the fact we're all over the world, yet united by learning Korean. I think that's cool too. That's why I usually ask where everyone's watching from whenever I start my streams, because it's like, I want to feel, where is all the energy coming from today? What part of the world is it in? Tokyo, nice. From America, random person says. Germany, USA, UK, Louisiana. I'm from Scotland. I'm Scottish. Maryland, Wales, Washington, Kentucky, Norway, but I'm in Hapjeong. Oh, nice. Hapjeong, that's where, not too far from where I was staying in May of this year. Migook, USA, Texas, South Carolina, Colorado. I'm going to go through these quicker. Elizabeth from Missouri, from Belgium, but live in Japan. Work, Brooklyn, New York. Is that a city called Work? Is the city just called Work? That's lame. I don't want to live and work. I live to live, I don't work to live. But anyway, I guess if you live and work, then you don't really have a choice. Charlotte in Fort Mill. Can you do a tour, please? Yep, we're going to be doing a little tour around here. Portugal, Aurora, Colorado. Aurora, Colorado. Oh no, they found me. They found me, guys. Which one of you reported it? Good morning from Busan, Sacramento, California, Malaysia, Mars. Um, Interesting. Watching from the rally. I doubt that. New York, NYC. Okay. UAE, Hawaii. I work to live. Yes. Scottish Billy or Michael Jackson Billy? Well, neither of them are accurate. I'm neither Scottish nor Michael Jackson, believe it or not. Scottish. We're gonna be learning Korean. I'm sorry. I'm stopping. I'm not. There's no more Scottish Billy. Scottish Billy is dead. I value my life over my jokes. They're not that good anyway. Let's see. Where else do we have? We live to die and die to live. That is not true. We live to live. There's a ton of time in between. Is it an airplane? No, it was a helicopter. But if you live in Suwon, it's pretty normal to hear at like jets or helicopters and stuff like that because we're not too far from the military base. In Korea, they have one here in Pyeongtaek, which is kind of to the side of Suwon. So yeah, it's pretty frequent that you'll hear like, aircraft going over. I'll be going to Gwangju next month. Is there anything I should focus on specifically learning? Which Gwangju? Do you mean the city Gwangju or do you mean Gwangju in Seoul? Or I shouldn't say it's not really Seoul, but in that area. Because there is a city, there is a Gwangju in Gyeonggi-do, which is next to Seoul, and then there's a older city, Gwangju, which is very far, and they're very different places. I like how much fauna there is at the park. Yeah, I think parks in Korea are very clean, very pretty. They're set up like, with guardrails, with paths to walk around, and they'll just place them wherever you normally would have trees. So yeah, they like to leave up a lot of the green stuff that normally would be there. So yeah, parks in Korea are pretty nice. I mean, you can get this kind of thing in the US too, but I think it's less common that you'll see them decorated in the US. Whereas in Korea, they like to kind of decorate the parks as well as mountains that you can go hike on. All that stuff is kind of like set up, like where you're supposed to go. There are signs and everything like that. Since the country is a little bit smaller, they can do that sort of stuff. Gwangju in Gyeonggi-do. Okay, yeah, that's not. You don't need to know anything special. Just that it's a city. You're not going to be too far from Seoul, but you're also not next door. So anytime you meet a friend, you're going to have to take a subway or a bus for about like 30 minutes or so. But there's nothing special you need to know specifically about that area. At least not that I can tell you because I've never lived there before. I've only been there a couple times. Okay, let me switch the view and I'll show you where we are. So this is, again, it's a park where you can kind of walk around the lake here. So that's what we're doing. Fauna is green stuff like trees, flora. Well, I know the expression flora and fauna, so I figured one of them is the other. I don't know which one stands for which. I don't really care. I just know it means green stuff and more green stuff. But anyway, yeah, lots of green. I just say green. That way we can all be happy and understand what we're talking about. Green everywhere. Although it's only green right now. In the summertime, you get these green colors. In the fall, you're gonna get still gonna get some green, but you're also gonna get a lot of like yellows and oranges in the fall. I actually prefer the look of fall in Korea. That's my favorite look. I know spring's nice too because you'll get the cherry blossoms, but I think those are a bit, and they're not overrated. That's not the word I want to say. People expect too much from it. Like oh, let's go during spring, you get the cherry blossoms. It's literally like one day. Like they're there for, no, I'm exaggerating, but they're there for like a week or so, a couple weeks, and then they're gone. And they never come back until the next year. And then they're only in those areas that have those trees. It's not like Korea all becomes cherry blossom everywhere. The rest of the scenery is winter scenery because it's still freezing cold around March. So, which is when the cherry blossoms typically come out, around like March or April sometimes. I think fall is the prettiest time to be in Korea. But if you're used to humid weather, you're okay with really humid weather, and summer's not terrible. I hate humid weather. Today though, because it had been raining so much, the weather right now isn't that hot and it's a bit cloudy, so it's okay. But some other days it's been really, really hot, plus really humid. And yeah, I'd prefer California weather for where I'm from, since it's more dry. K-pop 좋아해요? Nice sentence. 80 or Audi, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. 싫어하지는 않아요. I don't dislike it. But I don't consider myself like a K-pop fan, if that's what you're asking. But I don't have anything against K-pop. It's music. It's just one style of music. It's not even the only style of music in Korea. There are lots of Korean music you can listen to. Sprinkles asks an interesting question. I've never been asked this before. What animals do you like? I feel like you're like 3 years old asking me this question. No, that's like the question that I would get asked by like my kid or like one of his friends or something. It's a good question. I kind of like bears, because maybe KitKat kind of got me, open to liking bears. Now I don't want to meet a bear or touch a bear. Scary. I value my life. I also like, if I have to pick a favorite animal though, it's gonna be monkeys. Anything that looks like a monkey, doesn't matter if it's like, oh Billy, that's technically like a wild Eurasian gorilla. I'm like, that's a monkey. Anything that I'm talking about, they're all monkeys. All those monkeys flying around, that's my favorite animal. I just love monkeys, including gorilla monkeys, chimpanzee monkeys, all of those, they're good. That's my favorite animal. I've loved all of the apes, everything like that since I was a little kid. I have an unhealthy amount of stuffed animals still. I don't use, I shouldn't keep going too much detail. I don't have them in my room, but I have a collection of them from when I was a kid. I didn't throw it out, so I still technically have them. Okay, anyway, enough about monkeys. All right, Fella Do asks, would you prefer to live in Busan or Seoul? And why? I'm curious, as you have lived in Busan for a while. First of all, thank you for the donation. Let me give you 5 dabs for your donation. Just see if I can dab while holding the camera. I would prefer Seoul, and I think you should too. I mean, you should live there over Busan if you have a choice. Now, why? Because everyone's in Seoul. So people who live in Busan, like if you're not a Korean, but you're visiting Korea or you're working in Korea, if you've already been in Korea for a while, then Busan's great because it's a change of pace. You get to see different things you can't see in Seoul. You get to hear a little bit of dialect. Depending on where you go, you may or may not hear a lot. And you just get kind of like a different experience than you would in Seoul. It's more laid back, it's slower moving. Actually, I shouldn't say it's not slower moving. It's more laid back because there are fewer people. But they are like a different personality. So I'll just say different. And you might enjoy that if you're already accustomed to Korea and you want something different. But if it's your first time in Korea, go where everyone else is going, because you want those experiences to see if you like them first. Seoul is where most people live. It's where you have the most options for things to do, restaurants to visit, the most food options. You can get Busan food in Seoul too. And easiest to travel to other places also from Seoul. Whereas if you're in Busan, where are you going to travel? If you're in Busan and you want to do something, you're probably going to end up traveling all the way up to Seoul. And many people who live in Busan do that. Or they go up to maybe Daegu Although actually a lot of Daegu people go to Busan to do stuff. So you're gonna miss out on a lot of stuff, I think, if you're living in Busan. But if you already, again, are accustomed to Korea, it's a great place. I lived there. I would totally go back. I've been back a few times. But yeah, my recommendation, not just Seoul versus Busan, but Seoul versus anywhere in Korea, is if it's your first time visiting Korea or you're thinking of working here and you haven't lived here before, Seoul, or somewhere near Seoul at least. Suwon is another alternative. That's where I am. But I mean, even if you live here, you're gonna still end up going to Seoul like every single week whenever you do something. So yeah, I still recommend Seoul. Let's see. Okay, let's take another question. Let me just find some shade so I can read your questions. Okay. Planet Black Cat says, I remember you said you studied French. Can you still speak it? No, je ne peux pas français. J'ai tout oublié. Yeah, hopefully you at least understood me, but pretty much no. But I can understand, not terribly actually. If I hear someone speaking French and they're saying something simple, I probably am going to understand because I've had so much time studying the language through high school and in college. I've been exposed to so much of it as well. And actually, I've studied it a lot. I just never really put in any effort into speaking it. It was only like listening study. So because of that, I can kind of understand. I'll get the gist of what someone's talking about pretty okay. But yeah, cannot speak it. If you threw me into France right now, I would walk around being like, excusez-moi, où est le... like, excuse me, where is the, like, for everything, like everything. Do you have any pets? I do not. Okay. Would you learn any other languages? Nas asks. These days, I'll say no. If you asked me that question about, 10 years ago, or after I had just started my channel, but before I was doing this kind of regularly, I would say, yeah, I was trying to learn. I remember trying to get into Mandarin and Cantonese, which I did for a little bit. I did those for a few months each. But as of now, no other languages. Random person asked a question in Korean, so I'm going to answer this one. 빌리 선생님, 내년에서 한국에 갈 거예요. 뭐 배워야 돼요? Okay, so 내년에, you wouldn't use 에서 because you're not going from somewhere. It's at a time. 내년. So I'm going to Korea next year. What do I have to learn? 더 문법 배워야 돼요. 문법을 더 배워야 돼요. 더 is an adverb. I really respect that you're attempting to do that in Korean. I totally understand what you're asking. So you're going to Korea next year. Do you want to focus on grammar is what you're asking? It would depend where you're currently at right now in your Korean, but don't only, if I say focus on grammar, which I think is extremely important, yes, I don't mean only focus on grammar and only study grammar. That's not going to get you to where you need to be. I would say, you're going to Korea next year, focus on, if possible, focus on making a few friends, because you're going to come to Korea and you're going to have no support group, like zero. And you're going to end up making a support group of people who speak your native language. They could be Koreans, but they're going to be people who speak your native language, and that's going to be your main support group. And those are going to be the people you spend your most time with, at least for the first several months, if not more, or the whole trip. And you're going to be stuck speaking only your native language, so only English. This is what happens to most people who live in Korea. They end up getting into a group of English-speaking friends, or maybe they make a girlfriend or a boyfriend who speaks in English with them. They really need help, so they have a Korean friend who speaks English really well. You kind of get where I'm going. You end up having a fun time in Korea and still learning some Korean, but you're doing most of your day-to-day interactions, except like maybe at the grocery store. Most things you're doing are just in English, and you're not really getting to learn Korean like someone would if you were just, say, trying to live your life in Korean with Korean people. So that's what I would say. Try to have some people that you can meet. And then with your free time, so I can talk about how to make friends, but you can make friends on Discord by joining like Discord for groups that you're interested in Korean. You can make friends on Twitter or Instagram by messaging people and asking them questions or making comments and stuff like that. Language exchange apps still do work, even though they're a little bit less effective than they used to be. They used to be much more popular, I'd say, but they still kind of work. And you can also, okay, anyway, so that's for that. And then I would focus on, with your extra time, then yes, focus on grammar, but only in the sense that you're practicing with it. You're not just like spending your days studying grammar from a book or watching videos and just writing down grammar, and actually trying to use it. So you need grammar, but only as much as, and same with vocabulary, but only as much as you can actually use it. So I would focus on using as much Korean as possible. Let's see. Dance with Kum Kum says, what job do you do in Korea? Just nothing. I don't do a job here in Korea, fortunately. I have a, actually make sure I didn't push anything. Okay. Fortunately, I don't have a job in Korea, like, you know, what you would normally call a job. I do Korean teaching, I do YouTube, I film videos and edit videos and work on books and stuff like that. I've had some experience working at a Korean company before. I did not enjoy it every time. So yeah, I mean, there isn't really a choice though. If you want to come live in Korea, you're gonna have to work at a Korean company. That's just, but yeah, right now I do not. It just stopped raining over here in Tokyo, but it's cloudy and looks like it'll rain again. Yeah, it's supposed to rain today here too, but if you look at the sky, yeah, you wouldn't believe it's gonna rain at all today. But still, weather report says rain possible this afternoon, and it shows rain for most of the rest of the week as well. Yeah. That's kind of the annoying thing about Tangma, this rainy season, is that the weather report will show rain for like every single day. But then on the actual day, when you check in the morning, it'll show like no rain. You're like, oh, okay, that's great. But like you in the meantime, you've canceled plans you made on that day because it was supposed to rain. You didn't meet someone because you thought it would rain too much, or yeah, that's which is the kind of just annoying thing about how uncertain it is if it's going to rain. Like I know it's not possible to predict the weather, but I kind of wish they had like I wish it were possible to be like, oh yeah, this day it's definitely going to rain, or this day it's probably not going to rain. Like you can't really know any of that. If you check the weather app, it'll say like 100% rain this whole weekend, but then when you actually get to that day, it might not rain the entire weekend, or maybe it doesn't rain at all the first day or something like that. Yeah, I'm just complaining about something that can't be fixed. So Enormosaurus says, how's the air quality after the rainy season? Do you notice significant improvement? Yes. Typically the air, I'd say, is really bad normally. Like as someone who's a bit sensitive to that, I try not to stay outside too often. I try to wear a mask if I'm going to be outside for a long time. It was especially bad, I remember, when I first came here in May. It was like my throat would feel like a little bit sore, so I was drinking extra water to kind of compensate. But after the rain, it always gets better. So I think today is probably fine. It's probably fine most of Tangma, just because it's, where am I even going? Where am I? Hold on. I don't want to go that way. That's back to the main road. Yeah, it's okay. I can feel it just by breathing, how the air is. If my throat starts to get a little bit itchy and dry. Rainy season, same as in Japan. It's not the same. Japan also has a rainy season, but in Korea it's a little bit different. What should I do to improve my Korean understanding? Like when I read Korean or hear others speak, I don't quite understand. There isn't a special secret for improving your understanding. Your understanding improves alongside your speaking. Like for me with French, my understanding is like I can get the gist of something, but I can't speak at all. That's because I've had so much, not just exposure to language, but also practice, like studying it, because I took like almost 6 years of classes. So that's a little bit different. For Korean, you can do that. You can do just tons of listening practice, but it's not going to really help you. You need to also have lots of speaking practice so you're going to be able to retain and use the Korean that you're learning. So if you just study it and don't really practice it, you're going to end up like me, where for French, where I can kind of understand it, like I can get the gist of what someone's saying, but like I can't really respond very well. I can't say anything in response to what someone asks me. I can't really ask many questions either. Yeah, so don't just focus on listening. But if you are specifically focused on listening, then yeah, just find more resources that you can do active listening. So that would be variety shows which have Korean subtitles. Don't watch English subtitled anything. YouTube channels in Korean, someone who's doing something that you're interested in, something that you already like to watch regardless of the language. Find that stuff in Korean, and again, turn off English subtitles. You can have Korean subtitles if you want, or just listen, and try to do what's known as active listening, where you're actively trying to pay attention to it. It's not you just turn it on in the background and do the dishes, but you're like focused on what they're actually saying. Do that. Try to do it hours and hours a day. It takes a really long time, but it does help. But again, that'll only help you with your listening. That's not going to suddenly magically allow you to speak well. That would not happen. Okay, Moonwalker, interesting name, asks the question, can you get pretty anywhere? Can you get pretty much anywhere in South Korea by just using public transportation or mass transportation like Greyhound bus equivalent? Yes, there are some exceptions where you would need to spend extra time, like if you're trying to get to some specific island that literally no one goes to, like a fishing island or something like that. But every regular city, including every regular small city, you can easily get to and back home in the same day. Even something like Jeju Island, which you might think, oh, well, that takes a long time to get to. You can fly there and fly back the same day. And some people do that. I don't recommend wasting the money to do that. But yeah, if you want to go like really far, like Seoul to Busan or Daegu or one of the other cities, you can take a KTX directly there. You don't have to deal with like transferring. Just one ticket, take a KTX, takes like a couple hours and you're there. And then when you arrive, every major city has a subway station. Although I think, does Daejeon? Not really. Every major city has a subway system. And then the ones that don't will have a system that works similarly. Like they'll have a really efficient bus system. And then so here's how it would work. You take a train to get to major destinations like that are far. And then when you get there, you would take subway, bus, and then when you get to a place that has like no subway, then there will be a bus, like a local bus, or at least taxi service that you can do. So yeah, everywhere you go in Korea. Oh, and a ferry service, again, if you're trying to go to islands that many people visit, there will be a ferry service. So yeah, you don't need a car to get anywhere you want in Korea, which is nice, and very quickly. So if you have a friend in Korea and you're wondering, can I meet them? They live in, it doesn't really matter. The answer is yes, you can meet them. Wiggly Love says, I went from Seoul to Busan. I walked to my subway station in Seoul, and I didn't go outside until I exited the subway station by my hotel in Busan. Yes. If you're going to Busan Station, the subway, the KTX or the train, you don't have to do KTX, there are others, goes directly there. And I like that you have options. You don't have to only take the KTX. if you want to go to Busan. So for reference, the KTX, depending on what seat you're taking and when, it's about, it could be between 40 and 50,000 won. So let's just say about like $30, $30 to $35 to take the one way to go from Seoul to Busan or vice versa. Now that's not a lot of money, but it's not free, because if you go there and back, you're looking at like $70 almost. If you want, you can go there. There's a little cheaper way. You can take a bus. They have a night bus, which goes overnight. It takes like, I don't know, 6 hours or something like that. And you leave at night and you arrive in the morning. They're a little bit cheaper. I think those are probably like, I've never taken one before. I think it's like $15 to $20 each way. So you have options everywhere you want to go. If you want to get somewhere, but you don't want to take the subway, well, there's probably a bus that goes directly to where you're going from everywhere. You don't want to do that. Well, you can probably take a taxi. And no, it's not going to be that much money. Taxis are pretty affordable in Korea. I wouldn't recommend a taxi for like every day, because, you know, $5 here, $10 here adds up. But even if you want to take a taxi, like say you want to go from here, Suwon to Seoul, normally it's an hour bus trip, but you can take that in a taxi for like $40, depending on what part of Seoul you're going to. Could be $30. But yeah, it's not like you're looking at the end of the world by doing different methods. So you have a lot of options in Korea. And then even for the train, the KTX price I quoted you is the fastest, nicest one, but there are cheaper ones. There's a train called the Mugunghwa, which you probably don't want to take it. I recommend not taking it, but it is also cheaper. So maybe that could be an alternative to the night bus if you still want to take a train. And the Mugunghwa trains are older. They're less well maintained, so they're not as clean or as nice. And then they stop at all of the stations that the KTX would normally skip, and it would just do the major stops. The Mugunghwa just stops like every station, so it takes longer, but it's cheaper. So if you don't mind your train taking like 4 hours or 5 hours, yeah, you can do that. Maria says Daejeon does have a subway line, but not too big. Okay, I've been there like a dozen times because I have a friend who lives there, but I've never once taken the subway. Always my friend will pick me up in her car. So yeah, I didn't even know that they had one, but that makes sense. Pretty much though, that was actually specifically the city I was thinking of when I said everywhere has a subway system. And I was like, wait, Daejeon? But yeah, Busan does, Daegu does. Oh, now I'm wondering, does Ulsan? Ulsan also is fairly big, but I don't think Ulsan does. No. But anyway, Seoul and a lot of the areas around there do. Even here in Suwon, so many of the cities around Seoul as well have subways. Suwon has a big subway system as well. And then the other place would be Gangneung, so like the east side. Is there a subway system? I don't know. I'm gonna guess there is, but I don't know. Raj Lalo says, what would you say the first thing to do is after your 100 episode course? Well, you could start the Korean conversation course, which is going up right now. That is, when I wrote it as a direct sequel to the beginner course. So anything that's not in the beginner course, if it's in that course, it's explained. So I assumed that someone already had the knowledge of the beginner course when I started writing that course, because I didn't want to make it like too big of a jump. So I thought, okay, if I didn't teach something in the beginner course and I introduce it here, I'm going to teach it as if they don't know it, even though they probably would know it if they're at this level now. So that's how it works. So you can go directly to there if you really want to. It's a big jump, but you can do it. Let's see. This is a shaded area I kind of like here, so I'm going to take another comment before I move. Payload said, next year if I get accepted, I'll probably be going from Seoul to Daejeon. Okay, hopefully you're not doing it too often because, you know, the train fees do add up if you go there frequently, but Andy says, what kind of hairdo do you have? I don't have a hairdo. It's all messy whenever I wear my hat and humid today, so I don't know what it's going to be. I just keep my hat, I usually just keep my hat on all day. in this kind of weather because it starts, my hair will get like curly in humid weather, which is weird because my hair's straight, but it'll start to like curl a little bit when it gets humid. Speaking, I'm going to get a haircut in a couple days because I go back to the US next week. So that's why this is the last live stream I'll be doing from Korea for this summer. M&M Twix, I love your conversation course. I appreciate your hard work. Thanks, M&M Twix. Hey, and we're at a big park today, so there's no chance of us getting lost. Avid Gamer Girl says, my family was thinking of moving to Korea and opening a restaurant for financial stability. Do they have Thai restaurants there? Okay, the second part of your question, do they have Thai restaurants? The answer is, how Thai are you talking? Are you talking like, do they have like Tom Kha Gai or something? No. But do they have like Pad Thai and Pad Siu? Yeah, they have those. You can get those in Korea. You're gonna find like slightly Korean version of Thai food in Korea. But you're not gonna find like authentic stuff because there's not really authentic any foreign food in Korea, with a few exceptions. Just because the ingredients here, what the flavors that Korean people like are totally different. And for financial stability, that part of your question, oh, hey, Enormosaurus. Whoa, awesome. Hold on. One second, Avid Gamer Girl. I'll go back to your question about the Thai restaurant, but Enormosaurus, thank you so much. Lunch is on me. Oh, wow. Korean lunch is not $50, but it's like $10, but I'll take it. Have a really nice lunch day. Thank you so much. I have a question. I have some time off coming up and I want to do long study days, 7+ hours instead. I have some experience doing that. 7+ hours instead of my normal half hour to an hour. How would you structure an intense study week? Bonus, is that week spent better in Korea? That's a really good question. Let me really quickly finish the Avid Gamer Girl, and then I'll go to your question because it's going to need more than a second to answer. So as for opening a restaurant for financial stability in Korea, it's a terrible idea. Unless you think you can make a dish that Koreans are going to love. Not authentic Thai food, but authentic Thai food. You know what I'm talking about. And you have a good location, it's not going to work out because Korean restaurants are even more, they change even more often than restaurants do in the States. I think in the US it's about like 2 years. In Korea it feels like 1 year. Restaurants don't survive unless they're really successful. They quickly change. So even like restaurants I came here last fall are gone already, even though they're good. They just couldn't survive. So if you see a restaurant in Korea that's really old, that usually means it's a good restaurant and you can go there. If you're looking for like some really good Korean food and you find some place and it looks like it's old and hasn't been like repainted in forever, but it's open, it's probably really good because otherwise they're not going to survive. So that's what I would say. I'd say think carefully about that. Do you think you can really really bring a product of food to Korea that Koreans would really like? If so, yes, it's financially stable. And lots of people do immigrate into Korea and open restaurants and they do fine. You just have to make sure you can adapt to what Koreans want because that might not be what Thai people want. And if it was, I wouldn't be so disappointed at the Thai food offerings in Korea. It's like Thai food, Vietnamese food, forget about it. Like you're not going to find it here. Even bagels. They're bagel. One of the recent food trends in Korea these days is bagels. So like I thought, oh wow, bagels. I love bagels. Let's go get a bagel. And I tried it. I'm like, it's not really a bagel. It's one of the bagels I had it had garlic. It was like garlic and sugar. It was like sweet garlic inside of a plain bagel. And then I did have one that was okay. It was like a chive. It was like a bagel that had like chives on it, which was good. And there was cream cheese. But they do not toast their bagels. I'm guessing to save on electricity costs. So no matter how nice the bagel was, like the bread tasted correct. Like they cooked it correctly. I've made bagels before, so it tastes like a bagel. But they didn't make it like a bagel. So yeah. Okay. Normosaurus. So you're going to be doing Korean for 7 hours a day or ish. And you want to know how to structure an intense study week. Is the week better spent? Is the week better spent in Korea? The answer would be yes, but most of the studying you're going to be doing is going to be at your house anyway, so I think it's not going to make a huge difference. That's not a lot of time, even though it's a ton of time for studying. You don't need 7 hours of just sitting down and studying. I would structure it where you do a 30-minute section of studying on each end. If you really want, you can do like put another one in the middle. But I think you're going to find that if you spent 7 hours a day just sitting down and trying to study one thing, you're not really going to learn as much as you think. Your brain's not going to accept all of that information at once. And it's the same with studying vocabulary. If you just sit down and study like 500 words, you could learn 500 words. And then as soon as the next day rolls around, you're going to forget every single one of them. And if it's not by the next day, it's by the next week. Because even if you can recall them, you're not going to be able to use them in a conversation. You might pass the questions, the quiz that you give yourself. You might be able to recall all of them in Anki or Quizlet or Memrise, but you're not going to know a single one of them because you've never used them. So when you're in a conversation, you're going to be like, oh, wait, what was that word? What was that word? Ah, 기억. And then the person you're talking with is already gone. So that time can be better spent by doing a short segment at the beginning. Maybe like, let's say we actually have 6 hours. 7 is kind of a weird number, so let's say 6. First hour, 30 minutes of grammar. Do a lesson in your book. Go through 2 lessons. 30 minutes is a lot. Just focus on the grammar. 30 minutes after that, just focus on vocabulary. If you finish early, you're done. It's done for the day, for studying. Okay, now we're up to hour 2. So second hour now, we have 4 hours left. Hour 2 should be a full hour of listening to something in Korean, where you're actively listening to it. So find, I've given suggestions 100 times, I won't go into that. But yeah, find something you can listen to that you can listen to actively, no subtitles. So now we're up to 3 hours left. If you have a Korean friend, this is where I would spend some time practicing speaking. You really, really, really need to have some sort of outlet to use the Korean that you're studying. So, if you have a friend, talk with them. If you don't, use that time to try to make friends. So I won't say all the methods you can use to find friends, but any of those should work. Talk with your friends during that time. It doesn't have to be like, hey, I only have like 55 minutes. Can you speak with me nonstop? Like, it's just have some time where you're sitting down and just talking with a friend. This can be a break time because you've studied now 2 hours. You've listening for an hour and book studies and vocabulary for another hour. So this, you can like get a snack, sit down, have your phone out, and you're chatting with someone. This can be text chatting. It can be voice chatting. If you have a tutor, this is when you'd want to put your tutoring time. It should kind of feel like you're taking a break, but you're still using Korean. So now we're at 3 hours is up. So now we're halfway done. Okay. I would go and let's see. So we have 3 hours left. So I'm trying not to overwhelm you because you can think that, oh, I got 7 hours, I'll be fine. But when you do this for more than a couple weeks, it really is not fine anymore. You might be able to do it for like, a week or two and you're like, oh, I can totally do it. But then it gets hard. So you need to think of other activities that you can keep yourself interested in. I would say then after you've done that, do another hour of Korean listening to something else, different material. So if you did before like a TV show, then this time do a podcast, do a bunch of podcasts. And I really want to emphasize, you want to get a lot of this. You need a lot of input and a lot of output for Korean. You can't just do one or the other. Okay, so 1 more hour of listening to Korean. It can also be reading, any sort of thing, but I want it to be different than the first hour you did. Okay, so now we're at 4 hours. We have 2 hours left. I already know what I'm doing with the last hour. I'm trying to think of what I should recommend for this second to last hour. Because you don't just want to do more tutoring. I would actually, believe it or not, I would actually take a break. I would say the first hour, that hour where I said just kind of to talk to a Korean friend, I would say extend that and do that again during this hour, whether you're doing tutoring or whether you're just kind of relaxing. I would take another break here. Again, a break in Korean. So, but again, it has to be something where you're using the language. So this would be you're in a server with other Koreans. You are replying to comments on Instagram in Korean, or finding some Twitter posts of people who are doing things you're interested in and leaving like little comments next to those and reading their comments. The point is anything where you're actually using the language. The last hour is easy. The last hour is pretty much a repeat of the first hour because you have 6 hours here. 30 minutes again of grammar, but I don't want you to do new grammar. I just want you to review. Just review the grammar you already did before. So reread that same chapter that you already studied, you already took notes for, just read it one more time. And then the same 30 minutes again of vocabulary, reviewing those vocabulary words that you learned during the first 30 minutes. That's pretty much it. But I wouldn't try to make it intensive as a recommendation. You can, when you start doing this, you can realize like, oh, 30 minutes, he said 30 minutes for grammar, but I actually want to do more. I'm going to make it an hour of grammar and review an hour of grammar at the end of the day. That's fine. You can make that choice on your own, but I'm not going to make a recommendation for someone else because I don't want to recommend something that will make you burned out. I think that's a pretty realistic schedule though, that gives you 6 hours where you're really learning a ton, but keeps it light so that you're not feeling burned out while you're doing it. That's probably what I recommend. So is it better if you're in Korea? Yeah, because you could possibly use those 2 hours of time where you're kind of listening to Korean and stuff, stick them together and then go out and meet someone where you're speaking in Korean, and that counts. And that would be a really easy way to get more than 2 hours. Whenever I meet my friends, I never just meet them for 2 hours. I'm always like, we hang out for like 4 or 5 hours. One of my friends, I made a new friend this trip, and we hung out from like noon until 8 p.m. Like, and you don't even think like, oh, I'm using Korean all day. Wow. It's just, you're just hanging out with your friend. Of course you're going to use Korean because they speak Korean. So that's what I recommend. Okay. Let's see. Lauren asks another question. Oh, Sprinkles asks a question. I don't know what you're talking about. The show Hamilton? Is that the musical show? I've never seen that. I have heard one of the songs though. What was that song with the guy singing about like being the king? I did like one of the songs I heard, but I have never seen the show, so I don't know the whatever songs are famous. But if you know, if that's the correct thing, if I hit the right note, then yeah, I liked that song. I thought that was pretty fun. Both versions I heard. There were like 2 different singers. I like both of them. Okay. How can I practice writing if I don't have a teacher to correct my writing? Lauren asks. It took me hours and hours to compose a short essay when I was in class. If you want something trustworthy, you need a tutor. You need to get a native Korean speaker who can correct your writing. There is no shortcut. I mean, you might think that I could recommend ChatGPT for that. If you're okay not trusting it, then yeah, sure. You can throw it into ChatGPT and say, hey, here's a sentence. Can you correct it? It'll probably catch some mistakes because, I mean, if you make something that's clearly wrong, it'll know that. But it doesn't understand Korean, so it's just going to correct it what it thinks other people would have said in that situation. And it's not trustworthy. Like, you can't rely on it, is what I'm saying. But if you have a tutor, here's what you could do. Put your essay into ChatGPT, ask it, what did I do wrong? Write down the notes of what it says and why, and then bring that up to your tutor and check it to see if that's correct, because that at least can give you a real person's opinion on it. And that could save you some time with your tutor if you already know the reasons why. And if one of the reasons seems wrong or weird to you, you can bring it up with your tutor, and then they can be like, oh, what? No? Or, oh, actually, this situation, it's fine. So something like that could work as a time saver. But ultimately, you need actual human eyes to check to know if you did something right or not. That's what I would say. And for tutors, you might be thinking, I guess I would think the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about Korean tutoring is cost. You don't need a fancy tutor. You don't need the person who has Korean teaching certificate, like accreditation from a university, 10 years of teaching experience. You don't need that. All you need is someone with a Korean brain, because they're not, their job so much isn't to teach you Korean, unless you're actually paying for like full tutoring where you have them, you know, every week, twice a week or something. Their job is to help you know what sounds natural and to be a practice partner for you. So you can get a cheap tutor that simply just speaks to you in Korean and doesn't really know why they're saying what they are. They could still correct your journal or a sentence and tell you what's wrong. Even though they might not be able to explain it, they can say, oh, that sounds a little awkward. They can tell you what's awkward right away. And if you get a Korean tutor who has a little bit of experience, they're also pretty affordable. You don't need to get the best one that's $30, $40, $50 an hour. You can get one that's like $10 an hour. You know, they'll talk to you in Korean. They'll be your practice partner for an hour or two a day. And you only spend like 10, 15 bucks a day on them. And they might even give you a discount if you do it a lot. So that's what I would say for finding tutors is you probably need less tutor than you think. You probably need less of a qualified tutor than you think for learning Korean. Unless you're rich, in which case, who cares? Get the best tutor possible. I mean, it's not going to hurt. It's just usually not necessary. SY says, RM from BTS would watch Friends first with Korean titles, then English subtitles, then no subtitles. This is not how you learn a language. That is not how he learned English. I should say that. Nothing, no diss on him. But this is actually not, it's actually not a story I've only heard once. I've heard this story of learning English through watching Friends more times than I can count from Koreans who speak English. And some of them speak English very well. It's not just Korea either. In Japan as well, I remember hearing this story too. And when I was in Korea first, so like almost 20 years ago, I saw books in the bookstores about using Friends to learn English. So they would have books with Friends quotes and English, like Korean translations under it and explanations, and you would use those to help you learn English. This is false, and I'll tell you why. Koreans don't learn English by watching TV shows. The same way we learn Korean by watching Korean TV shows. For one very important difference. And you might already know what that difference is. When you are a baby in Korea, rich or poor, when you're a child in Korea, like I mean 1-year-old, 2-year-old, you are going to school and taking English class. English class, they are speaking English to you. They're teaching you the alphabet. They're teaching you expressions. You do that your entire life. This is not high school Spanish. This is not high school French to Koreans. English is, to Koreans, a native language. I'm not saying that they speak it natively. I'm saying English to Koreans is taught to them in a similar way as we in English learn our native language. And other European countries also learn English like a native language. You take classes, so you've taken it as a kid. You go to elementary school, you have tests on it. You're like a 3-4-year-old kid and you're learning English. You go to elementary school, you're taking tests. You have to graduate. In order to graduate, you have to pass your English test. You might not speak very much English at all, but you've studied it a lot. You've been exposed to it since you were born, and you passed that test because you want to graduate. Now starts middle school. It's even more intense. You really got to study English. You might hate English at this point because you're like, I don't have any uses for it. I'm not going to America. I'm not going to Europe. I'm not going to use English, but yeah, whatever. I have to study it. So you study it, and you study it extremely in depth. You learn words nobody will ever use to you in your entire life, even if you lived abroad. Now starts high school. You take the Suneung, which is the Korean, like the high school test that everyone takes. English is on there. If you look 수능 영어 시험, 시험 문제, or whatever. Search English questions for the Korean 수능. They are insane. Like, native English speakers would get these wrong. Koreans can do that because they've been studying Korean since they were born. That does not mean that they speak it though. They've been studying it. They've been exposed to it. They keep taking their classes every single day. They have books on it. They'll write sentences where they have to like match the correct particle and, you know, post preposition and everything like that. The same way we would learn in school at that point. That doesn't mean they're good at it. So then they graduate, okay. They go to college. Again, they'll take more English classes at college. But the point is, by the time they've graduated high school, they have an extremely vast knowledge of English already. That doesn't mean that they speak it. Again, I need to clarify. So what makes someone in Korea speak English versus all the Koreans who can't, who say that they can't speak a single word of it? Which is not true. They actually can. They just don't want to, or they're not confident enough to use it. It's having actual usage of the language, because they don't use it. The same way I never used French in high school, despite studying it for 4 years of high school and almost 2 years in college, because they don't use it. If you actually then go and do lots of English listening practice on your own, such as Friends, or even better, which is more common even, is doing a few months or maybe a year, a stay abroad program where you go to another country and you live there for a short time. Maybe you work for like 6 months to a year or so, maybe 2 years, and you work in that country, and you finally, for the first time in your entire Korean life, you get to use English. Suddenly, it's like a light bulb flips on. Wow, I speak English. Therefore, I learned English by watching Friends. Therefore, if they go abroad and they learn English, therefore, I learned English because I studied so hard when I was abroad. And that's only giving you a piece, a fraction of the story. They've been working at learning English their entire lives. They didn't learn English because they just started watching Friends. Friends is what opened them up to listening practice, to active listening. Or going abroad to another country is what gave them the same, active listening plus lots and lots of real speaking practice, using what they've been learning since they were a child. So that's something that you should know, is that if you see a Korean who speaks English very fluently and you think, wow, I want to do what they did. Well, if you want to do that, you're going to have to build yourself a time machine and go back to when you were a child and put yourself into school studying Korean every single day for your entire life until adulthood, and then into adulthood as well. Nowadays, it would be difficult to find even one person under the age of like 80 who hasn't had this experience. So you might meet a Korean who is like, 60 years old, and you're like, oh, this is, it's an old lady. She doesn't know any English. Haha, wow, let me teach her some English. She probably does know English. She just has no confidence in it. She's never once used it before. But if there was a situation where she needed to, like if you dropped her off in the US suddenly and said, hey, go buy some food, here's some money, she'd find a way, because she had, a couple decades of English as a child, if she hadn't forgotten all of it by the time she's 60. So that's kind of the situation of learning English in Korea. So the reason I'm saying this is because I feel some people, maybe a lot of people, compare themselves to Korean speakers. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any important comments. Someone said they do that in Japan too. Yeah, it's the same in Japan, though I can't comment on it as in depth because I only know a few Japanese people compared to hundreds of Koreans. Some people unfairly compare themselves to that sort of thing. They think, oh, this celebrity speaks English so well, and they only learned English in 2 years, they said. That's not true. What they mean is they spent 2 years seriously trying to learn English, after having learned it for 2 decades, or however old they are. Which is not to dismiss their accomplishments, because if they didn't spend that time watching Friends or going abroad and living in another country speaking English, if they didn't do that, they would not be where they are. They wouldn't speak English as well as they do. So it is on them. It is their hard work, their time they gave up to do that. So it's not taking away their accomplishment, but know that that's the tip of the iceberg for the full story. That's not how they learn the language. So if you, as a Korean learner, see that and you hear someone else learned English in, oh, they just said they watched Friends for 2 years, or they just said they went abroad for 1 year, and you think, how come my Korean's so terrible? How come, relative, how come my Korean's not as good as that? And you feel like you're not smart, or you can't do it because, look, that person did it. Their English is, wow, they know so much English. They're fluent. Yes, they're fluent because they're, in some ways, a native English speaker. Now again, if someone goes and doesn't then use their English for anything, grows up, does whatever, and they're 50, 60 years old now, they're probably going to forget pretty much most of or all they learned as a child. And that'll happen for native languages too. I sometimes encounter Koreans who were born abroad, but now they didn't use their English, so they can't really speak it very much. Or it sounds really like limited. So yeah, don't compare yourself to that. It's a completely different experience. If you were in the same experience, if you were in the same situation, you could have done the exact same thing. So, yeah. Sorry for I just needed a rant because I have a lot of people that I think a lot of frustration, people feeling depressed about their Korean, stems from that. And it's not anything specific toward RM, since you had mentioned RM. So I don't mean this as specifically toward him, but I've heard the Friends story countless times from many Korean celebrities. And it's just a thought to be, it makes sense to Koreans. They feel like, oh, well, you got to learn English by watching Friends or watching a drama or something like that, without understanding, kind of forgetting, I'm not sure the real reason, all of the work that they've been doing already up to that point to get them ready for that final step of actually using the language. Am I just going around a circle? Okay, let's see. Zandria says, so a more accurate statement would be their English conversation skills were improved because of Friends. Yeah. They awakened their sleeping native language of English by actually using it, is even more accurate. And it would be the same for me. So for French, if I had, at the end of high school for 4 years, gone to France and lived there for a year, I would have that 4 years of study under my belt, even though it was useless because I never used it during that time. It seems useless. I can't speak it at all. It would still be all that vocabulary, all that exposure to the language that would then slowly, it kind of like acts as a foundation. So that when I finally actually, go to France, which I'm probably not, then it would kind of come back and help me. So yeah, it's just like that. And it's specifically Friends. I don't know why it's Friends. Koreans love Friends. Japanese people also love Friends. I didn't really get the appeal. I was more of a Seinfeld fan at that age, but a bunch of my friends were big Friends fans. Okay, let's see. Mochi Ball says, 당근이지 is a slang that means of course, right? Yeah. It's slang because it means carrot. And it's because it sounds like the expression 당연하다, 당연하지, which means of course. But 당근 is carrot. It sounds like 당연. So 당근이지 is like saying, oh, it's a carrot, literally, and it means of course. But you can go one step further. Some people will say 말밥, 말밥, literally horse food, 말 and 밥. So what is horse food? Well, horses eat 당근. So you might hear people say like, oh yeah, 당근이지, or they'll just say, it's horse food, and it's the same thing. It's just like one step further of the joke. And it's not funny, or it's just something I sometimes hear people do. LC says, how do you think Felix from Stray Kids learned Korean so quickly? Exposure? Yeah, Felix was, and I mentioned this in my Stray Kids video. I did a video about them, if you haven't seen it. he also had grown up as a little kid in a Korean environment, but then wasn't using it. Like 99.99% of all Korean kids who grow up with Korean parents but not in Korea is what usually happens. They'll start speaking it as a child, but as soon as they start leaving the house, making friends, going to school, they abandon it for whatever language everyone in their environment is using, which is always what happens. And then the kids will grow up later. They'll feel like, oh, I must have been lazy. I didn't try to use my Korean. It's not the case at all. Felix was one of those cases where he had spoken Korean but never used it. And then finally, when he went to Korea, that was like when, not ignoring that he had those years as a kid behind his back. So yeah, it was actually, what helped him was actually then going to Korea and having to hear Korean all day and actually use it. He was forced to use Korean all day, which brought back the stuff he had learned before and added on to it. So yeah, it's kind of a similar situation as I learned English by watching Friends. In his case, he learned Korean by being in Korea and finally getting to build onto what he had learned as a kid. And the reason he learned it so quickly is because his environment didn't give him a way to just use English. I mean, you can see in his videos, he's forced to learn Korean, and he was almost, wasn't he kicked off? Yeah, he was going to be kicked off because of his Korean, I think I remember hearing. It was a while ago I did that video, but yeah, basically they told him, like, you better learn Korean better or you're getting kicked off. So he's like, okay. So he studied Korean, books, but beyond that, he actually just used Korean, kind of like forcing himself to only use Korean, only listen to Korean and speak Korean, which is why he's able to improve a lot faster. He wasn't in a situation where he was just hanging out with other English speakers. SY says, like me, I forgot everything by age 2. Yeah, that's the norm. So I say this, maybe someone else in the same situation, if you were born speaking Korean and then you grew up and you thought, oh, I can't speak Korean anymore. I feel like ashamed to be Korean. I've heard this so many times, and it's not true. If you speak Korean or not, it's completely unrelated to you, actually. It's completely your environment. What language was being spoken around you? Because that's the language you're going to use. You're going to use whatever's the easiest. That's the language that's spoken the most around you. So that, as a baby, that can be Korean because your parents both speak Korean. But as soon as you start going out of the house, making friends, doing preschool, English, your brain will be like, why do I even need Korean? Everyone speaks English. Your parents even understand English. Why am I learning Korean? It's not on you. The only way to undo that would be as if you have parents that are specifically trying to avoid that. In my case, with my kid, we're trying to specifically help him to avoid that situation by encouraging him as much as possible to keep using his Korean. Otherwise, he would go the same route, like everyone, which is the default. So, for example, if the parents decide, hey, we're only going to speak Korean in our household. If you speak English to us, we're going to ask you to repeat it in Korean. That can work. Then at least you'll have one environment where you always have to use Korean. But still, even with that, when the kid becomes a teenager and is not at home all day and has their own friends, it's not going to work. It'll still break apart when they become a teen. So you have to think of new methods. But that is not on the kid at all. That's 100% on the environment. And the parents are able to assist with that. But sometimes if you just, parents can't just up and move to Korea, there's nothing you can really do about it. Enormosaurus says, what's your favorite fried chicken place in Korea? Oh, actually like Kumne. It's not fried, but Kumne is, I like their flavors the best. For fried, I think I'll stick with Gyochon. Gyochon is a really old brand. It's a classic. Back 20 years ago, almost, when I was first going to Korea, there were only a small handful of brands of chicken, and Gyochon was one of them. They just do a really good job making crispy chicken that's not overly thick, doesn't have like too much batter on it, and with chicken that has lots of flavor. Some places will have like really thin batter, but then the chicken itself is not very flavorful, or maybe it's way too salty, which is a common problem. or they just cover it in so much sauce that you're like, where's the chicken? I think Kyochun does a pretty good balanced job, but they're not the cheapest. So I don't eat it very often. Maybe I'll have it like once a year, once every 2 years. Or Normosaurus did give me lunch money. I could totally afford Kyochun with that, because I think it's about, if you get a full chicken, it could be about 25 to 30 bucks with everything. So yeah, maybe I'll have to see. Let's see. Tanya says, I really appreciate your explanation. I often feel discouraged learning Korean for 4 years and still not able to converse. Yes, that's the reason why I wanted to speak up. It's because I feel bad every time someone shares that story of, not specifically RM. Again, he's a super cool guy. Not specifically him, but anytime any Korean will share a story like that. Right now, I think he's probably the biggest, yeah, he's the biggest celebrity who says he learned English by friends, but there have been so many celebrities before him that have said the exact same thing. But I know people will hear those types of stories and they'll feel like discouraged in their Korean learning. So like, no, really no, that's not a good comparison. 4 years, it all depends on how you're learning. 4 years can be tons of time. Like I know some people who they come to Korea, study Korean, well, they study Korean really hard, they come to Korea, they live here for like a year and a half and they're completely fluent. I met several people like that. I met someone who was, I think they studied Korean like 8 months and they didn't even come to Korea. And they were like, not fluent, but they were like good. Like I would say just a little more and they're fluent. And then there are other people who live outside of Korea, studying with books, 2 years, 3 years, and they can barely string together a sentence. And you might think, oh, well, the guy or the girl who speaks Korean in 8 months, that's really smart, you know. The one who spoke in a year and a half, oh, really hard worker. The one who took, 2 years or 3 years still can't have full conversations, oh, they must be lazy. It's their environment. If you have uses for the language, people you can speak to on a regular basis, that's the environment. It's being able to actually use it. And then there are the majority of people, overwhelming majority of people who move to Korea to teach English and live here for 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, a decade, or I mean more than a decade, like 12 years, and cannot speak Korean. That's the majority, really. Most people that I meet who've been living here for years and years cannot speak Korean. The exceptions are ones who marry a Korean who prefers speaking in Korean. And that's not the majority. Most people who marry someone who speaks English default to English because, again, they already speak English. Even if they're not good, they already know English. Even my own wife, she does not speak English to me. But that doesn't mean she doesn't speak English. Her English is extremely good. It's as close to perfect, I think, as you can have for English. And like, I know a lot of Koreans, her English is extremely good, but she doesn't have a lot of confidence about her English, so she doesn't use it. Yeah, it's just the default to not learn Korean. Korean's a hard language. But if you've been learning Korean for years, so yeah, I'll say any more than 2 years, beyond 2 years, and you feel like, I still can't speak it. Not like, you're not fluent, that can take longer, but let's say you're still like, oh, I can't even have conversations yet. Then I would sit down and say, okay, let's take a look at exactly how are you studying? Because if you are doing lots of listening practice and speaking practice, 2 years should be enough to become conversational at Korean. That means you can bring up topics, talk about things, give your opinion on things, answer questions, ask questions, describe things, all of the things that you learn as a beginner, but being able to actually use them. That's what I would say. Kind of sit down and evaluate, like, am I actually trying to use the language enough? Am I actually listening to the language enough? And then also, is my goal for myself realistic? Am I talking about like being completely fluent and I'm frustrated, I'm not? Or is it like, oh, I can't even have a conversation? Maybe you'll say like, oh, I've been studying for 4 years, but no, I can have a conversation fine. I'm just not completely fluent. I can't understand, K-dramas about medical situations. Well, then, give yourself a break. You could be giving yourself too high of a goal. Okay, let's see. Agant says, the biggest mistake people make when learning languages is most definitely not speaking the language as much as they should. Yes, exactly. If you don't have significant time spent speaking, you will not improve. Yeah, it's impossible. And there are some people who will tell you that you will get, if you simply listen to lots of Korean, you're going to get good at Korean. It doesn't happen. I've never seen it happen. It can't happen. I mean, even if linguistically it can't happen, but still, I've never seen it happen. No one has claimed to have done that who actually did that. You need to have speaking. Language is not just understanding. Like, let's say if it worked, let's say if listening to Korean let's say listening to thousands of hours of Korean did improve your Korean to eventually you would be able to understand most everything. Here's going to be a conversation in Korean. Wait, how do I say hello? And the person's like, 빌리요. 어떻게 지내세요? 오랜만이요. 요즘 뭐 하고 지내세요? I understood everything they said. What do I say? I'm doing good. Even if it worked, that would be a horrible situation to be in. And then even if you couldn't speak it well, they would assume you didn't understand it as well. So even in a perfect world where that sort of thing worked, you wouldn't want it. You don't want that sort of outcome. Oeno says, or is Oweno, my goal was to be fluent-ish in 3 years. Then it became enjoy the process of learning. I watch many hours of Korean content and I enjoy the content more and more because of my initial learning. Yeah. And yeah, if you're doing listening practice, just make sure you're honest with yourself. Is this actually active listening? Or am I just reading the subtitles? Am I just watching it for the pictures? Like if I'm watching like what is it, BTS Run, or Run BTS, that's right. Like, am I just watching it for the image? Am I just watching it because it's funny to watch them goof around? It's fine, you can enjoy it, you should enjoy it, but are you actually listening to what they're saying? Like, is this active listening that you're doing? That's the question you can ask yourself. Any sort of listening practice that you're doing, it needs to be active listening or it's close to useless. Passive listening is what I think many people think of when they think of listening, like, oh, I'll just turn it on, I'll just kind of watch it. If I pick up some words, that's great. That's not active listening because you're simply listening to it, but you're not trying to understand what they're saying. You're not stressing to be like, oh, what did they say? What did they say? Oh, wait, what? I didn't hear that. I missed that. Why are they laughing? Oh, I missed the joke. That's active listening. That's the kind that's not as fun, although it gets fun the more you learn. But when you're a beginner, active listening is not so much fun because you cannot understand anything. But that's the kind of listening that really will help you. So I always recommend active listening, and you don't need to take notes so much. The point of active listening is it helps reinforce your studying. The sentences that you're reading in your book, your textbooks, they're always going to be like perfect sentences. They're always going to be straightforward, clear. At least mine are. I try to write them really clear, but it's not going to be necessarily natural because natural sentences might miss context that you need to understand a sentence when you're trying to learn grammar. Hearing lots of Korean, trying to understand it, will make those textbook sentences easy to you. Because you're going to be like, oh, wow, look at this sentence. I can read it clearly here what it is. The word's defined. This is so easy. I only need to think about the grammar. Active listening should not be like a relaxing process. It could be fun. You want to do active listening on things that you would enjoy to watch. But that doesn't mean you're going to be sitting back with popcorn and being like, this is so wonderful. I love it. you're going to be like you might have popcorn, but you're going to be like sitting on the edge of your seat, like trying to understand what they just said and being frustrated you didn't understand why everyone's laughing. So that's active listening. And that's what I recommend. During the first several months of COVID, I did a minimum of 4 hours a day. It was at least 3 or 4 hours a day, sometimes more, of active listening for some YouTubers that I found. Just because I was like, I need to do this. So I would do my editing in the morning. I'd finish all my editing work sometime between 4 and 6. And then from then until 10 o'clock, I was just listening to this YouTuber guy. And since my Korean level is higher, I was able to get a lot more out of it than, say, a beginner will. But it was just active listening. You're just listening. You're trying to really listen to what the person's saying. Makes it a lot easier to think of sentences in Urdu in my head and then try it in Korean. Yeah, well, that's funny thing about that. Many people bring up that, well, Japanese has the same sentence structure as Korean, so I translate in Japanese first. Great. Urdu or Tamil, like all these other languages, oh, they have the same sentence structure. Maybe they're related to Korean. The majority of languages in the world are subject, object, verb, not subject, verb, object, which is what we do in English. So yeah, you're going to find a lot of languages that have similarities with Korean for sentence structure more than English. English is like the worst language to compare to Korean, really. It just doesn't play nice with anything. So if you find things that are similar in another language, use them to help you understand it. That's great. That's why learning other languages, even if it's not Korean, learning another language can really help your Korean, just because it opens you up to how to learn a language. Okay, let me take a couple, just sit down here for a second. So I need some water. I'll take a couple questions. Let's see, can I make this stand up here? Yeah, I can. Okay. See if that doesn't fall over. Okay, let's take a couple questions. Superstitious asks, are you able to recommend some novels? No, because I don't read Korean novels. I don't read, this makes me sound dumb, and I know I'm not bragging about this, but I don't really read novels in English either. I'm just not a fan of fiction novels, I guess. I'm a huge fan of movies, so I love watching movies. If someone says, oh, they made this wonderful book into a movie, I'll watch the movie. If the movie's fantastic, then I'll read the book. But I don't read a lot of novels in general. The stuff I read in Korean is like guides, technical stuff, troubleshooting guides, or like information about hobbies that I have, like technical stuff, dictionary entries. I like reading that stuff. Whenever I look up a word, I'll read it in Korean. And then conversation, and then like Twitter conversations, Instagram conversations, that sort of stuff is what I like to read. So I can't recommend some novels. I would ask a Korean for that recommendation. But if you don't know what books Koreans are reading, just go to any Korean bookstore. They always have the most common ones out. The most popular novels or whatever will be out in the front. So you can just pick up whatever Koreans are reading, or ask the worker what's popular. They might tell you, oh, this book's popular, and just get that. Okay, let me scroll down a bit. I don't want to miss. Hold on, I saw a message from a member. Oh, Tanya again. I found it so hard to follow when they talk so fast. I'm only to get a fraction of what they're saying. Yeah, it was the same thing for me. Literally the same thing. It gets better, but it does take time, and there's no getting around that. It just takes a lot of listening. Koreans speak very fast, but once you've learned the grammar for those things and the vocabulary for those things, it doesn't matter how fast someone's speaking, you'll understand it. Like, unless they're saying something really complicated, then it's the same as English. Like, if I were to say a sentence really, really quickly in English, is this really difficult to understand, or is it the same? Because I said only simple words, I'm sure you didn't even blink understanding what I just said. Like, I know some friends who can speak really, really quickly in English, but it doesn't really make it harder to understand what they're saying because you already know the words that they're saying, and they're not really saying anything difficult, right? It's the same for Korean. If I start saying like, oh, the posthumous name of the kings of the emperor, like you start talking about, I don't know, something I don't even know about, really fast, then that's when it's hard. But the basic stuff is always going to be basic no matter what speed. So in that way, I'd say Korean speaking quickly is not a problem. It's nothing to really worry about. Che says, I feel like I already know the answer to this, but someone with social anxiety, can I practice speaking by talking out loud to myself? Yes. As someone who also has social anxiety, but has gotten much better through doing YouTube, through teaching Korean, through doing live streams, making videos, I've gotten better, but I still do have it. In some situations, it's very clear. I can be a bit awkward sometimes. And yeah, you can practice by talking out loud to yourself. Yes. So you don't even have to speak out loud. You can think, because when you're thinking, you hear your own voice anyway, pretty much, unless you think in someone else's voice. I don't know if people do that, but it also works when you're thinking. So if you're around other people, like, you have roommates or whatever, you don't want to sound crazy, just think to yourself in your head, it works as well. Not Billy sounding like the Micro Machines. Yeah, whatever happened to that guy? Micro Machines. I don't even know what he said. What did the Micro Machines guy say? I don't remember one word that he said. It was just whatever legal stuff that they had to say at the end. Maybe it was like this, don't try to copy what you just saw in the commercial because the cars don't really drive themselves, or something like that. I don't know. Or like maybe you have to be like over a certain age to sign up for their website or something like that. Have you ever used AI for speaking practice? Eminem Twix asks. If you, because here's the thing. Will it tell you accurate Korean? Like, can it make accurate Korean sentences if you ask it to? Hey, you are a 30-year-old native Korean speaker who is a teacher. Speak to me in an easy to understand way like I'm a Korean learner, and only use 100% accurate Korean sentences, and always be open to explaining anything that I need, and make sure your sentences aren't too difficult for a learner to understand, but not unnatural. Like, you could say something like that, and it'll do its best to try to follow. But you have to know that the sentences it's giving you still will not be natural. In fact, if you want an example of this, watch the first episode I made of the Korean conversation course, because in that course I have KiCat presents me with an AI conversation, and that conversation is real. I actually had ChatGPT generate me I said, give me a natural sounding Korean conversation, as natural as possible, with two people talking about the weather, is what I think is what I gave it. I told it specifically be as natural as possible. And it gave me that sentence, that conversation, word for word. It actually made it longer, but I cut out just the introduction part. It is so weird. Like, every sentence it gives is perfect Korean. Every answer it gives is a perfect answer to that question, but it is so unnatural. It's like, how are you doing? Oh, I am doing fine. The weather is nice, isn't it? Like, who talks like that? So while I think ChatGPT is a useful tool, it can be a useful tool, I would never say it's a useful tool, if that makes sense. Because you have to keep so many things in mind while you're using it. It's like, imagine if you have a hammer, but it might randomly explode in your hand if you use it the wrong way. So if you give this to a professional and say, use it like this, hold it like this, use it like this, you're good to go. Then the professional's like, okay, well, it's not, I have other tools, but it works. You give that to a student and say, here's a hammer. You have to tell that next person you're giving it to, like, hey, this is a hammer. This is what it might do if you use it wrong. Just know this. Only do this. Like, it's better. Like, here, here's a real hammer. It's not as fancy, but it'll do the job correctly. It kind of feels like that. If you recommend, I would never recommend it, because it's like that. It's like it has its its problems. In future live streams, can you use filters? Do they have filters? Do I have filters here? There are some filters on YouTube. There's a glamour filter. That might be what some people use. Let's see. There's a silver screen. Oh, that's really weird. Oh my goodness, I look like... Is this black and white? What is this? Sketch. Oh. What's up with my teeth? I feel like I'm Smeagol now. Yes, precious. Got him. You could totally see my I have like these eye wrinkles. I've had them for a long time, but they're more, obviously as I'm getting older, they're more pronounced. This is creepy. Yes, we learned Koreans. Yes, we do. Stop it. You're scaring them. We're not scaring them. We're teaching them. Yes. Okay, I think we got to stop now. Let's go back to normal. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. The phone got hacked or something. Let's see. Meme Police, nice name, asks, since you always seem to visit Korea in the summer, do you have any experience with the giant hornets? Is that a thing in Korea? Did I miss something? Am I forgetting something? No, I haven't noticed that. Maybe some areas? Can you speak in Korean with the Gall impression? Yeah. I could probably do it. I've never done it. I probably could do it. I could do Korean with any of my other impressions, so sure, why not? I'm not going to do it though. Because I'm not alone here at the park. There's going to be like some 아줌마 would be like freaked out. 오늘은 7시에 저는 아침밥을 요리했어요. Okay. I totally understand your sentence. I recommend a couple things. Most often the subject is the very beginning of the sentence, unless you need to emphasize the time in which the subject will be the second part of the sentence. You'd say 오늘 저는, or even better, 저는 오늘, like that. Again, or again, I think what ChatGPT is really useful for is asking stuff like, how are this word and that word different? Explain the nuance of this word. Again, it's an exploding hammer. Yes, if you know what you're doing, ChatGPT can be wonderful. But then you already know what you're doing, so why are you using ChatGPT? Here's what you can do. What's the difference between this word and this word? Include the nuance, and it'll tell you. But if there's no record of that nuance being explained on the internet somewhere, or it's not obvious, it's going to make something up. And that will easily happen if you're not asking something super common. Ask it right now. What's the nuance difference between 고맙다 and 감사하다? Or even better, 감사합니다 and 고맙습니다. Ask it the nuance difference between that. It's going to tell you something that it copy and pasted directly from like Quora or Reddit. It's just going to reword it. So you're going to get a good answer about something like that. But then ask it like the difference between 당황 and 황당. You might get another answer. There could be someone ask that. Ask it a question between the difference of 수술 and 시술. Like ask it words that people wouldn't have asked the difference between on the internet yet. And see if it can tell you, because you have to be careful. You can't really trust it. You might ask a simple question and think, oh, it's perfect, I can trust it. And then you ask it an actual question and it makes something up. So just know that it could be wrong, and then you can feel free to use it. How much will it take to get you to speak Korean in that voice? I don't know, another $50. I'll do it for another $50 donation, but it's not something I want to do like frequently because, like I said, I could legitimately scare Koreans. I not only do I do the full voice, I can do the I can do the motions, because when that movie came out, I was like, this is the best character ever. I practiced Smeagol so much to be able to do that voice. Lord Alcatraz says, have you ever heard of the Blessed Family Central Church? Yeah, there are lots of strange Korean churches. If a Korean person ever approaches you in public, and their question is not, it's not an old person. Old people might legitimately get lost and they don't know how to find something. So I'll say if they look like they're 60 or older, give them a pass. They're probably not in a cult. Everyone else, though, is probably in a cult, and they're or at least strange church, I'll say, to avoid offending someone who's in a cult. People do not go up to you and talk to strangers in Korea. Nope. A security guard could come up to you and be like, don't throw trash here if you threw trash on the floor. Like, that's legitimate thing someone might come up to you if you're doing. Never happened to me because I don't throw my trash on the floor. But if you're like throwing your trash around or something, someone might walk up to you and say, hey, don't do that. No one's gonna ever walk up to you and ask you how you're doing. They might walk by and they look at you and they say, in English, they say, oh, where are you from? Or where are you from? If they speak English well. That's it. They're not gonna ever try to start a conversation with you. If someone does, it's probably a religious thing. I feel like ChatGPT. What's ChatGPT? Hello there, it's me, ChatGPT. I'll be your buddy in all your Korean learning. Someone responsibly finding Korean, but he slept through some classes. Sure, ChatGPT is just as good at Korean as the internet is at teaching you Korean. Yeah, if you go on the internet and you search difference between this word and this word, that's about as good as ChatGPT is. Yeah, that's actually a good comparison. As a Korean teacher who frequently does that to verify when I'm making lessons to make sure I'm not leaving anything out, I always check lessons on whatever topic I'm teaching to make sure I don't leave anything else important out. So I can add that. Like, I might write a full lesson about a topic. I'm like, perfect. And then I go check. And then someone else mentions on that, this form is typically only used in this conversation. Then I can think about that. Oh, that's right. Let me add that. Or what happens most of the time when I do this and I Google something, this form is typically only used in this. No, it is not. Because you don't know who's behind the screen. It could even be a Korean teacher that doesn't know about the form or learned it incorrectly. I mean, everyone has wrong knowledge about Korean. It's just normal, including myself. And I try to do my best to find that and fix it, but everyone has it. That's ChatGPT. You're going to get the wrong stuff, but they're going to be extremely confident about it. Or you just confirm with a native. If you have a native speaker there, like that's like having, you're doing your exploding hammer, but you have the professional working with you. That's fine, but you have the professional working with you. You don't need that hammer in the first place. That's the thing with ChatGPT, is that when it actually becomes useful, you no longer need it because you could search for that stuff yourself at that point. 선생님, 오늘은 체육관에서 운동할 거예요. Okay, nice sentence. Are you going to exercise at the fitness center, the activity center today? No, 운동 안 할 거예요. Although I've been walking around a lot, so. Max Chang, is small talk common in Korea? Not like it is in your home country. Not like it is in the States anyway. And not like it is in other English-speaking countries. Some people do like it. So I've found that usually older people are okay with it. A little bit of small talk. They're the ones that might ask you where you're from, including like many taxi drivers. They're typically in the older age range, like 60s, 70s sometimes. That generation seems to be more okay with it, but typically, no, you're not going to hear people doing small talk. If you want small talk, do that with your friends. Like, you're not going to be walking up to people randomly and doing small talk most of the time. In fact, I made a video about this. If you search small talk on my channel, there's a video I did for the Glass with Billy series. And we also talked about that, like how you can do small talk, what to do if someone does small talk to you, what things can you say to start a conversation, like that. MC Hu Tao says, I'm a beginner in Korean and I have a problem with this word, ui. And I hear so many pronunciations of it, so I got confused. I actually have a video exactly about that. Search my channel for ui. And it's in my Korean FAQ series, and I teach exactly how to pronounce it and when it's pronounced different ways. It actually has 3 different pronunciations. Ui, which is, you can always pronounce it as ui if you ever get stuck. E, when it's the possessive marker, and also i in certain situations, and I talk about that. But if you're ever wondering if this is a more basic question, like how do I even pronounce it? It's always just uy, and you'll be fine. Every situation you could pronounce it as uy. 100%. You can just say uy. I mean, you're not gonna be wrong. It's less natural, but it's always correct. Agant says, if someone under the age of 60 talks to you and doesn't have no, even if they're over the age of 60, it could be that. I'm saying, I only made the exception for if they're over the age of 60 and they're legitimately lost, which I've had that happen sometimes. I'll get off at a subway station and an older person will ask me, oh, I'm trying to go to this hospital, or I'm trying to go to this exit. Do you know where it is? Because they assume I'm someone who knows the station, or just because I'm there. They're like, oh, you probably know the area. And I've helped them that sometimes. Other than that, it doesn't really matter their age. They could be older. Now, if they're like really old, I mean, you know what I mean, like they're really old. They're not trying to recruit you. I don't want to say an age to avoid offending my grandmother. She's not old yet. She's still young at heart. Although I think she does also have some heart problems. So anyway. Yes, in a Harmony chat with me on the bus in Korea. She was adorable. I couldn't speak well, but she tried. Then she made sure to say goodbye when she got off the bus. That sort of thing could be okay. Just be cautious when someone speaks with you. And you can lower your caution the older they are. Like if they're 60s-ish, you can probably lower your caution, but still, it's not impossible. I've still had some people who are older try to start conversations with me, and then turns out that they were with a church, and they're just trying to get me to recruit for their church, but they were trying to do it more naturally, so I wouldn't think it was like recruiting me. I've had that where someone was talking with me. They saw me walking around filming a video, and after I filmed, they were sitting next to me. So they're like, oh, I heard you're speaking Korean. How do you learn Korean? They're talking like that. And it was just a short conversation. They said goodbye. And then I left, but then I came back and I walked behind them because I was going to another direction. I stopped at the store and I overheard them talking about a church meetup they were having that evening. So I was like, I mean, I was leaving, so I said I had to leave, so I left. But if I just kept talking, it probably would have just been, hey, come to our church meetup where we can ride bikes together and hang out. You know, it's that sort of thing. So yeah, even when you think it's not, it still could be. And sometimes it really is not. But you'll know that after the encounter is over, whether it was or not. The last live stream I did, two live streams ago, I did with my son, Jeremy. And after we finished the live stream, we'd been walking around the market all day for like 2 hours almost, walking around together. And after I finished it, we crossed the street to take the bus, and there was some older lady there. Maybe she was like 60. And she said, oh, I saw you guys walking around and around and around there. What were you doing? And we're like, oh, I was doing a live stream for YouTube. They're like, oh, okay, are you hungry? And she looked at my kid, and she gave him 2 tok, like the rice cake. These were like nice rice cake that had like nuts and stuff in them. She gave him and one had like fruit. She gave him these. She's like, oh, eat these, you know, have a nice day. And that was it. And we got on the bus and said bye. They were not trying to recruit us. They were just legitimately concerned that we were hungry after walking around for so long. And I checked, like they had bought them at the market. Like they took them out of their bag that they had purchased them from. Each of them was like chanan or ichanan, I think. Like legitimately just giving us food because they were worried we were hungry. It was super nice. Okay, I'll take a few more questions. Do streaming maybe another 10 minutes. Agant says, well, see, a lot of times natives aren't teachers. I'll ask them stuff and they just don't know, especially grammar. Yeah, that's normal. And I would be the same if I was speaking English. Even though I have taught English before, I still wouldn't be able to explain a lot of things. Like, when do you use who or that or which when you're connecting something? Like the person who or the person that. Like maybe I could work my way through it, but then how do you do the person which? Like, like you can think about it. You'd have to maybe think about it for a while. You'd probably end up Googling it to find the exact answer. But just because I use it myself, I can use it naturally, doesn't mean I can teach it. And Korean has so many things like that where you don't really think of it. Maybe when you hear the explanation, a native would say, oh yeah, that makes sense. But until then, you can't really teach it. So being a native or not a native doesn't really have anything to do with someone's ability to teach Korean. Now, most Koreans are natives because they have that head start on the language. They're going to speak it better than anyone studying it. But just because someone's a native or just because someone's not a native doesn't mean they can or can't teach Korean. Alex says, you talk about 60 a lot. I'm sorry, if you're 60, I'm not saying you're old. I'm just trying to say the cutoff date for when I might say you have the possibility of being old. But you know, 70 is the new 60 these days, so. I actually don't even know how old some of them are. Like, I can tell if they're in their 50s, like, right away. Like, oh, that person's in their 50s. But sometimes beyond there, I don't know. Some people are, like, really good health, and they might look like 50s, even though they're 70s. Sometimes I'll meet people like that. Other times it's the opposite, where I'll meet someone, and they'll tell me that they're, like, 55, but they look like they're a trucker, like they've been outside all the time. So, yeah, a lot of that depends on, like, their profession, like, how were they growing up? You know, did they have a poor lifestyle or like a more wealthy lifestyle? Did they get to eat as much as a kid? That sort of thing. Xandria asks, do you have any thoughts on temple food? What is it really? Yeah. So for anyone who wants something fun to do, whether you're religious or not, on Buddha's birthday every year, and this changes because Buddha's birthday is on the lunar calendar. So it could be in like April or it could be like in May or June. I'm not exactly sure. It's sometime around then. You'll want to check. Every year on Buddha's birthday, you can visit a chol, so a Buddhist temple. There are lots of them in Korea. You can visit any of them, though I recommend going to the larger ones, and you can get a free meal. No religion required. Now, don't just go there to steal a free meal and then leave because, I got a free meal, suckers. Like, be respectful. But yeah, anyone can get a free meal. You do not need to be Buddhist to do it. I've done this before. I made a video about it in my Korean food playlist you can find. I did a video about Buddha's birthday, getting a free meal there. And it's basically bibimbap with tteok. And it's like fresh. Like, it's the temple, the people who normally would go there, they prepare the food and so it's really good. It's like homemade food and you just get it for free. Take your food, walk up somewhere around the temple, sit down, relax, eat, put the dishes back, go. No expectation of payment, no expectation of donating anything. If you feel like that was a wonderful meal, I'm going to better donate to them so they can do this again. Go ahead, go up to the top. Do the prayer thing. You can follow what other people are doing. Just copy them exactly. Throw some money into the donation bin and go. Or don't. It's not expected. But it's really cool. And yeah, the food's pretty good. Yidrizil says, I am Buddhist. Not sure what version of Buddhism is in South Korea, though. I try to keep religious conversations out of the channel because it's not really learning Korean, so I won't talk extensively on it. I'll just say it's simple. I'll just say it's simple. But I mean, they all would have come from the same spot, so. Okay, let me see if I missed a question. Sky says, hey, Billy, I'm trying to do 1,000 hours of listening before studying vocabulary. Do you think this is a good idea? I mean, it's not going to hurt you, but you could do better things with your 1,000 hours. Now, if that's 1,000 hours of active listening, that's great. But there's no reason you have to delay studying or practicing during that time. It's not going to help. By delaying your speaking or delaying your vocabulary study, you're just basically delaying when you start learning vocabulary. You're not going to be able to understand very much if you don't learn the word. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you hear the word kokke. You're not going to understand what it means. Even if you think, oh, it's a kind of crab, you're not going to understand what it means until you actually look up the word and see what kind of crab it is. You're not going to know what pur is you're going to think pur just means glue. You're not going to know it means grass unless you do like thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. And you could have just looked up that word in 1 second and learned that it has those two meanings instead of spending 2,000 hours to do it, or 1,000 or whatever. So it's great, do it. But you don't need to wait to do the other stuff. You can start the other stuff alongside it. You can do 1,000 hours of listening practice, active listening, and you can also learn some grammar while you're at it so that you can speed up how long it takes for you to start understanding things. There's no reason you have to make yourself wait. Fire God says, hey Bill, how you doing, man? I haven't seen you since you left New Jersey. I have never stepped foot in New Jersey before. Is there someone who looks like me? Or am I missing a joke? Enormosaurus says, for listening practice, can you summarize how to do it effectively? Maybe some key points to check off while going through. Okay, you're serious about this 7-hour-a-day thing. All right, so Enormosaurus wants exactly how to effectively do listening practice, like some key points to check out while you're doing listening practice. Yes, number one is it should be something, now this is like a linguistics thing, but it should be your level +1 is what they say. So N +1, which is where you currently are, a little bit more difficult. That's the type of listening material that's going to be the most effective for you. Now, that's not to say you can't watch medical drama in Korean and do active listening. It's not useless, but you're going to get more out of watching, say, a kids show in Korean with subtitles in Korean or no subtitles than you will out of something that's made for adults or something that's really difficult. So I always recommend something like variety shows because those are as close to natural Korean conversation as you can get. But you can even go simpler than that. You can do podcasts. You can do kids podcasts because podcasts are going to be even more clear. Like they speak so clearly because there's no visual element to help supplement your understanding. So they're very easy to understand compared to real conversation. So podcasts, so find something that's your level, a little bit above your level, and always do that. As you get better, slightly increase that. Then for your listening practice, you don't really need to take notes, but if there's a word that you keep hearing over and over, sure, go ahead and look that up. There are not going to be too many of them, but if there's a word you keep saying, 멸치, then look it up. You're going to say, oh, they're talking about anchovies. Okay, that'll give you some context. They could say that word 1,000,000 times. You would never pick it up. 1,000 hours of listening to people talking about 멸치 without seeing it is not going to help you. So if you're doing listening practice where you're not also looking at something, you need to also look up words. But don't bother pausing and stopping it, like stopping it to look up a word and continuing, because the point is that you need lots of it. Not that you're trying to use like 1 hour of listening practice for studying. You need as much of it as possible. Turn up the volume as loud as you can. When you're doing listening practice, it helps to hear everything clearly, because if you can't even hear it, even if you speak Korean really well, you have to be able, it has to be audible. So make sure the volume's loud, like not hurting your ears loud, but loud enough that you can easily hear it. So use use some good headphones, maybe not not the ones that go in your ear, because that can actually damage your hearing, but ones that go over your ears, maybe that are just get rid of all the sound around you and just let you hear it. And then you can lower the speed a little bit, like maybe do 0.75 or 0.85. Don't go like, 그러니까요, don't do like something really slow like that, because you won't even be able to hear what they're saying. It works against you, but a little bit slower would help if it has that option. YouTube does, so do like 0.75, and it won't really sound that much different, but it'll help. So yeah, loud, a little bit slow if you can. And then if you have subtitles, don't rely on them, because more often than not, they are not 100%. They're not going to match exactly what the person says. The subtitles are shortened, so that way you can read them quickly in the same amount of time that someone said that. And it's always going to be shorter than what they say. Or sometimes it'll even be different because they made the subtitles before they finalize the edit. So that way they can release it at the same time, and the subtitles match the original edit that they did, which has happened a lot. Like it'll be longer and the editor actually chopped off the last thing they said right before they put it on television. So don't rely on the subtitles too much. And then try to give yourself a variety of material. because you can get so sick of doing the same listening practice over and over again. Like what I really like, I like listening to horror stories, like ghost stories and stuff like that in Korean, but I wouldn't listen to them all day because it just gets boring. It just gets boring. I don't know why I said the getsa. So I would mix it in with other things I'm also interested in. So I also had like a gaming YouTube channel that I was watching, and every time the guy would play different games. So that was fun. You get a different like topic every single time. Just try to mix it up as much as possible. So find multiple things that you can enjoy listening to. And then again, focus when you're doing it. You're not listening to this only to enjoy it. You're listening to this to understand. So really pay attention to what they're saying. And if you miss it and your head hurts, that's correct. If you have a headache when you're done, you just did a great study session. That headache gets a little bit easier and easier as time goes on. And then allow yourself, keep track of how much time you're doing, because that'll kind of help you look back on how many hours you've done. You might think, I've been doing this forever, but you look back and you only have like 50 hours. So think of it like a game that you play. A Steam game. Steam game shows you how many hours you played. I played this one game that I swear I thought I played the whole thing and I beat the entire game and got all the endings for the game. But I looked in Steam and I think I only played it for like 60 hours or something like that. And I'd played every possible path for the game you could get. So yeah, it's kind of like that for listening. You need to keep track of how much you're doing, and then know that it takes a lot, like hundreds, thousands of hours before you start getting more confident in listening, combined with your regular learning. So that's the advice I would give you. Siege Hub says, what will you do if I donate? I'll be very appreciative. Enormosaurus paid for my lunch before, and so I'm gonna get a nice lunch today. I'll have a nice lunch. I'll have an even nicer lunch. Maybe I'll have a dinner too. If you want to be a little fancy. Billy Gaming Streams. I have a gaming channel. I just never use it. I used it during the first year of COVID. You can find it. It's Go Billy Gaming. I don't recommend it because there's nothing. It's not. I don't use it anymore. But that's where I was playing some games. And for that, I wasn't just playing the game, but I was trying to translate. It was like my translation practice. Translate everything. And it's really, really hard to translate games that will give you like novels. So you have to like translate the sentence, which is like really long, and you have to give like the word at the beginning that's at the end. It was really hard for me to do that. But if I'm just playing the games, it would be a little bit easier because, I don't have to translate things back to the reader. I can just read it in Korean. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know what it says. Okay, next. And I haven't played any recent games, so maybe I could restart it. If enough people want me to, I could restart that channel, do some more Korean games. A lot of games have come out since then that I'd like to try. Ueker asks, would you say watching Koreans kids shows for learning is time wasting? I heard your friends rant half an hour ago, but I'm still confused. Kids shows are going to be easier than dramas, but, and there's a big but here, they're not easy. Kids shows are for Korean kids, and they sometimes are more complicated. They'll use more complicated Korean than variety shows. Depends on the show. And they'll also use different words. Like, there are a lot of different words that kids use for regular things that you don't use in an adult. Like, kwaja for a snack. You don't say kwaja. Well, you could say kwaja to a kid, but the kids' word for kwaja is kaka. Kaka is a snack. It's like they give you a little snack. It's a kid's word. But adults know this word, but you don't use it to other adults. Like, kaka 좀 사러 가려고. Like, you're not going to say, I'm going to go buy some kaka. Although you could, jokingly. So you're going to learn a lot of words that kids use specifically, and like sound words, animal names that you never will need to know. Like, you don't really need to know the word kirin for a giraffe unless you go to the zoo, because when are you going to see a kirin? More useful would be like actual animals you're going to see, like 강아지, 고양이, 새, like birds and stuff like that. Not kirin, 코끼리, 사자, like 호랑이, like maybe 호랑이 because that's like part of Korean history, but yeah, so just know it's not going to be the best, but it's fine. Again, active listening. That's the key. Payload says, do you think working at a Korean store would be good for input and output? Oh my goodness, yes. If you worked at a Korean store, If you worked at a Korean store, that would give you so many chances to speak Korean. Now, yeah, if you worked at a Korean job, that's great. That's a really good way to do it. And I did work a few jobs actually where I was doing the job in Korean, and they were also helpful for my Korean speaking. Now, they don't make you instantly fluent in Korean, but they can make you not instantly, but quickly improve so that you can handle that situation. Like you'll adapt really quick to be able to answering questions about where products are, or like expressions like "I will ring you up," or "Please ring me up for this," or something, or saying the prices. So whatever you're using in your job, you're going to get good at that. So yeah, that's great if you could do that. But then you have to deal with working at a Korean company, which has its own whole share of undesirable attributes that I won't go into today. Sprinkle says, I feel like no matter how hard I try, I am bad at Korean. Any tips? That's a very common question I get, but the question is too vague for me to help you with it. I would need to know how long you've been studying, how you're studying, and what your Korean is right now. What things can you do in Korean? And again, how long you've been studying, what are you using? If you tell me you've been watching K-dramas and watching YouTube videos for studying Korean about just learning the alphabet and watching, TV shows, BTS TV shows or something for 5 months and you can't speak at all, I would say, duh, but it would depend specifically on your case. But that sort of thing might be useful to, if there really is a real problem with learning, then that would be something I'd say to bring up to a tutor. Maybe get 1 or 2 tutoring sessions and try to find out how you're doing. Are you really doing a bad job at this, or is there something you're not seeing? PM says, let's see, PM said something. Hold on, I might missed a conversation here. Koreans have no clue how to simplify their language when speaking to foreigners, or they can't be bothered, one of the two. That's not quite true. Now, if the Korean thinks you speak Korean fluently, then they're not going to really simplify it very much. They'll just speak. They can't be bothered. If you ask for directions, they're just going to tell you. If you're actually having a conversation though with someone, not like a really quick encounter, but you're having an actual conversation with someone, then they will simplify it for you. If you are speaking Korean, even if you're fluent, the way a Korean will speak to you as a non-native Korean speaker is going to be different than the way that they would speak to another Korean. So it can make it difficult to get involved in a conversation if there are 2 or 3 other people having a conversation and you're trying to be a part of it. It can be kind of difficult because they're speaking to each other in a different way that they're speaking to you. But this sort of situation only happens when you're actually having a full conversation. This sort of thing isn't going to really happen for quick interactions. They're not going to bother simplifying their Korean most of the time for day-to-day things. Oh, here's your order, this is how much it costs. They're just going to tell you because who cares? If you don't understand it and you enter a conversation, then they'll start to simplify it. But yeah, that's just the thing. 서단계도 3년이면 풍물을 읊는다. Yeah, they say if you get exposed to something enough, you'll eventually learn it. It's not quite true, but yeah, it's partially true. If you're working in a Korean store or a Korean restaurant and you're interacting with people and speaking Korean all day and every day, and they're speaking Korean to you, even if it's not really complicated, you're going to get better at it really quick, you'll find. That's why I always try to push the importance of practicing using the language, not only listening to it and studying it. Because listening to it is good, studying it is how you learn things in the first place, how you can be able to recognize them the next time you see them and learn faster. But you're going to forget it. If you spend all day learning one grammar point and you don't use it for a month, you're going to forget the whole thing. So what's the point? You have to use it. Charles Darwin. Hi, Sir Billy. I'm not a sir, at least not yet. The Queen has not knighted me. Oh, I'm not even a citizen of anywhere over there. Agant says, when you're out in the real world trying to speak, just try your best to be understood. You will naturally improve your awkwardness sounding natural. Yeah, just try your best. Koreans do not expect you to speak Korean, so they are shocked if you say anything in Korean. So yeah, it's not like the US where if you don't speak Korean, some people will be frustrated with it, or they'll be like, oh, this guy doesn't even speak, did I say English? Yeah, this guy doesn't even speak English, or they'll try to simplify it for you. It's, in Korea, they are shocked that you can speak anything. So they're like, whoa, this guy speaks, or this girl speaks, or whatever, this person speaks Korean. That's crazy. They said hello. Oh, they introduced themselves. Like, what? Where'd this come from? And that's what most people will kind of feel like. So they're not expecting you to be able to put together full sentences. And the more Korean you speak, the more surprised they'll be. Which is good and bad. It's good because you get a foreigner card. You don't have to be perfect at Korean. You're not expected to speak it well. It's bad if once you get to the level where you can already now speak Korean, and you sometimes have to push over the assumption that you can't speak Korean when you're speaking with someone by speaking more Korean to them. So sometimes the beginning of your conversation can get held up by, where'd you learn Korean? How long have you been studying? Oh, I see. Oh, you have a Korean wife. Oh, that's why you speak Korean. Oh, it's not? Oh, okay, interesting. Like you do this thing you have to get through every conversation, which is can be annoying. But I think it's an okay downside for the benefit. LC says, can you speak the Busan accent? 뭐라카노? 사투리도 할 수 있다 아이가. 조금? 잘하진 못해요. No, I never learned the Busan dialect to speak it. I did learn it to understand it because I was living there, but I purposely avoided learning how to speak it. So the Busan dialect is just, I know enough to understand it. It sounds fine to my ears now, but it's not, I can't go and speak like that because it's not just the intonation, it's like different words and stuff too. Judy says, even saying 감사합니다 got me smiles in Korean. Yeah. Just saying 안녕하세요 to someone, they're going to be, oh, like that. Like they're happy. Max says, okay, I'm just taking a couple more questions that I'm going to stop for today because I should eat lunch. Nora bought me, or Saurus. I keep forgetting it's a Saurus, or I think it's Saurus. Yeah. Got me lunch today, so I'm going to get that. Nas says, is studying abroad a good way to practice Korean? Yes, it is incredibly a good way to study Korean, but it depends on the college. Some colleges are worse for that, like in that they don't encourage you to speak. Max says, I never really understood the difference between topic marker, subject marker. Yeah, Max, I have a video in my Korean FAQ series called How to Feel the Topic Marker. I recommend watching that because I've explained it so many times on my channel. I don't think everyone here wants to hear me explain it a millionth time. So well, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but at least I've done more than a dozen videos on it. So I recommend watching that video for your specific question, how to feel the topic marker. And then another video about the topic, subject, and object marker all together. I have like 4 videos on that all together as well. PMG says, I have a lot of trouble distinguishing between all and o. Yeah, that's like Busan people as well. Do you recommend exaggerating the o sound? Cool, o. The key thing is that the o, your lips make an o. Your lips make an o shape. O, o. You can't say o. You can't say all at all. The sideways one, I mean the horizontal one, you can't say the all sound at all with your lips in an O shape. So try it. Ooh, ooh, ooh comes out. You have to. Ooh. If you don't make your lips shaped like an ooh and you make that all sound, it comes out as all. So it's like it's one way or the other. If you make your lips like this, just put your lips open like that and you say all. It's gonna be the all sound. You can't say oh, you can't say oh if your lips aren't round. Can you show us the pronunciation difference between their corgi and meat? Oh, wow. In Korean. Corgi? Corgi? You mean corgi? Like there? Corgi? Not corgi. Sorry. Yeah, that would be the same. If your lips are open and you say call, corgi, corgi. If you make your lips round, corgi. It doesn't matter what you're trying to say. It's your lip shape. Ko, oh, call, cool. Just look at your lips. It's impossible to say oh, oh. You can't even do it. If you even try to say it, oh, it comes out like oh. It comes out closer to oh because of your lip shape. And the other way, oh. I can kind of, it sounds terrible if I try to say oh without rounded lips. Oh. Oh, you meant corgi for the dog? I thought you were talking about corgi like. I'm learning Korean as a complete beginner. How much will I know after I watch all of my videos? I think you mean my beginner course, which is the only structured series that I have on my channel is that. The other videos aren't in any order. I have somewhere like 600 or 700 videos, so good luck with that. But if you watch the whole beginner course, it will take you up to a solid beginner level. Watch the very first episode. That tells you exactly what you learn in the course. And you actually learn more than I say in the first lesson. The first lesson gives you the outline of everything you're going to learn. And there's more than that actually is covered. The reason is I wrote that guide of what you're going to learn when I first planned the course, and I made plans for originally I think it was like 120 videos I was going to do. So I planned out all of the videos, 120 in advance, and then I made that first episode saying what you're going to learn. But as it turned out, I had several lessons where I finished teaching the topic and I had lots of space left, like the lesson was too short. So I'm like, okay, well, let's start teaching the next one. And it ended up being, I got more information in 100 videos than I did in my initial plan of 120. So yeah, you'll learn everything in that first episode and more. Kogi is meat, yeah. Moonwalker says, LOL, you sound constipated. Ha ha ha, yeah. Oh. Oh. Where can I learn? Oh yeah, I see you just asked that question. What is the course? It is called Beginner Korean Course. And you can find it on my channel. If you just go to my channel, you'll see it right there. It says start learning here, I think. Or if you can't find it, just go to Google and type Beginner Korean Course and you'll find it there. I have the only free beginner Korean course on the internet that I know of. And that is 100% free. There is nothing you can even buy. Even if you want to buy something, there's nothing. So I'm sorry. It's just all in the video course. I bought your books a while ago. They saved my horrible Korean. Your Korean's never horrible. It's only exactly where it should be, depending on how you're learning. PMG says, I recommend Dee Dee's Korean Culture podcast. She speaks very clearly and is a wonderful person. I've seen a few of her videos. Yeah, she does speak very nicely. I also subscribe to her. Hee Sung Kyu Hoon. Sorry, there's a Q in there. Hi, Billy. Any tips to improve pronunciation? Speak louder. Because when you hear your own voice, you'll hear your own shortcomings as well. And you'll hear how you're pronouncing things, and you'll notice that it doesn't match quite with how other people are saying it. So people who speak very softly, I find, will also have poorer pronunciation. And people who speak more loud and clear tend to get better. It's not an always, though. Sometimes I'll have people who are quieter, who have really good pronunciation, people who are louder, who just sound terrible. But so it depends on where they are in their Korean journey, relatively, I mean. But yeah, it typically when you speak more clearly and you can hear your own voice talking, you'll be able to fix it better. Yeah, these days there are a lot of good YouTube channels for learning Korean. It wasn't that way. So back in my day, there were like 5 channels for learning Korean. There was Talk to Me in Korean, which they didn't have any lessons on their channel yet, but they had some like they were teaching like phrases and stuff like that on their channel back when I started. The bigger one was Korean Class 101. There was C-Mile, which was not really a YouTube channel in as much as it like, I mean, it is, but they would re-upload classes that were taught in Korean by numerous teachers in no sort of order. It was like, here, this is a Korean class we had by this teacher, and they just throw all the videos up. And then here's this other teacher, they throw all the videos up. So if you could search to find a lot of good stuff on there. There was Professor O, who still is active, though not, I don't think she's taught Korean now in probably like 10 years or more. But she used to be one of the Korean teachers as well. Now she is Sweet and Tasty, but at the time she was doing Professor O and making Korean lessons, teaching grammar and phrases, lots of Korean common expressions, stuff like that. And then there was, I'm drawing a blank, that might have been it. Like for regular, there are other channels that had like a few videos here and there, but for channels that you could clearly say, oh, they are teaching Korean, that was pretty much it. And now there are hundreds, and there are lots of good ones too. I almost read your name as Nicki Minaj. Ninsiki Mihaj. Okay. I didn't know you made books. Yes, I do. Thank you. And PMG, thank you for the Ichanan. Thank you. Someone said, Lauren says, Professor Yoon. Well, 2 dabs for PMG. Lauren Bay says, Professor Yoon is really good. Yeah. I wanted to do a collab with him, but then I found out he lives in the US, far from me. What is it? Ohio or Idaho or Oregon or something like that. I can't remember. Somewhere like that. He lives quite far from me, so I haven't been able to meet up with him. But I do want to do a collab. I totally want to bring an extra shirt and an extra hat. He is how I aspire to be in like 20 more years, 10 more years. I don't know how much older he is than me exactly. I don't want to insult him. So I'll just say in 3 years. He is who I aspire to be when I'm 3 years older. But yeah, I like his content too. Max Chang says, I know you probably said this on your older videos, but no one really says 좋은 아침, right? No, people do say it, but they say it kind of like in a funny way because it's a literal translation of good morning. It's not a normal Korean expression, so it's not like, oh, here you say 안녕하세요 and this and that, this at the evening and this in the morning. Just 안녕하세요, 안녕 or whatever is for any time of the day. But 좋은 아침 is, some people started saying that as kind of a funny expression. I remember hearing it as even like 20 years ago, I'd hear people say it, but it's kind of like a cutesy way of saying good morning. You'd say 좋은 아침입니다 or whatever. Like it is a good morning, like good morning to you fellows, kind of like that sort of feeling. But yeah, people do say it, just it's not a serious thing. 이제 가야 돼요. 감사합니다. 선생님, eat well. Thank you, Enormosaurus. I'll have a nice meal. I'll take a picture of it. I don't know what I'm going to eat yet. Professor Yoon is in Iowa. Okay, that sounds about right. I knew it was one of the I's or the O's, somewhere around there. But yeah, I'm not. There's no way I'm ever gonna find myself over there. So not out loud. Yeah, and that's another thing is you're gonna see it on chat. People will message it to each other, but it's not something you're gonna use in real, like speaking, unless you're trying to be silly. Yeah, good morning. Good morning is more common, I think. Jonah, yeah, 좋은 아침. Agan is 100% correct on that. Good morning is another common expression. Again, it's kind of a cutesy expression, so don't say this to like, you know, your teacher. Don't say this to like new people who you're meeting. It's not a formal expression. It's more of like a cutesy expression of saying good morning, imitating English. Kind of like we have a lot of the stuff in English, like when you say goodbye, what's the official way to say goodbye in English? You just bye, late, see you again later, take care. But people do sometimes say sayonara, ciao, like that. It's kind of like that sort of feeling when you use one of these other expressions like good morning. So yeah, it's not really official, but you'll hear people write it. Okay, let's take one more question and then I'm going to stop for today and eat. My stomach is telling me to eat something. Hold on, it's getting hot. I'm going to move. This area, this seat used to be shaded. Okay, let's take like one more question and then we'll stop for today. So I know my battery's going to die anyway, and it's past lunchtime. I'm getting hungry. But it's hard to stop. It's hard to stop streaming when currently about almost 90 of you are still hanging out with me. It's kind of fun. So, okay, let's see. This area is a little more shaded. Did you end up going to the Vicha? What's that? Is 가지고 informal? Okay, you're talking about the, first I should explain, because there are actually several different 가지고 that you're talking about. There's the literal 가지고, there's the something something 가지고, grammar form meaning because, and then there's also 가지고 meaning using. The answer to the one you're asking is the form like something something 먹어 가지고, 바빠 가지고, like that. 가지고 informal, yes, it is not formal. That doesn't mean casual though. Informal is just simply something is not formal. So you would not use 가지고, the grammar form, in a speech. You wouldn't want to use it to like someone older if you're trying to sound polite. But it's not rude. It's not casual in itself. Especially not if you use it together with yo form and other polite speech. Can you use it with a teacher? If you're just talking with the teacher normally, like you're having a conversation with the teacher, yeah, it's fine. Just make sure you're still speaking politely. You don't have to use formal speech. You probably wouldn't use formal speech to your teacher anyway. Formal doesn't mean polite. Formal and informal are unrelated, like in that sense. And I actually have a full course, if you want more information about that. There's a full course called Mastering Korean Politeness Levels. Yes, that's what I called it. And that goes into excruciating detail. I think there are like 26 episodes or something about like every single possible situation for every single grammar form. I mean, every single politeness level and every combination of every single situation for every single politeness level. It's no one watches the course because it's too detailed. But if you really want to know more about that, watch that course. I go over all the feeling of like exactly how the forms feel, not just what they're used for. But you probably wouldn't use formal speech with a teacher anyway. You could, but it would be in a formal situation that you would use formal speech with a teacher. It's not necessarily the person you're speaking with as much as it is the mood that you want to convey. Serena asks, do you go live every day? No, I only go live in the US once a week almost. In Korea, I'm trying to do it once every 2 weeks, which is really frequent. I normally would only do it like once a month or once every 2 months. But, okay, I'm gonna... Nihongo mo benkyou shinai no? Yeah, I don't study Japanese anymore, but I can still understand it just fine. I did like serious, intense study of Japanese for over 2 years. I think total I studied it for about 3 years, but like it was really intense for almost 2 years. And I got a lot of Japanese, but I haven't used it. That was over 20 years ago. So I've forgotten like the bulk of it. But if I'm in Japan, I can still get along, little doggy. I can still understand what people are saying for the most part. So it's okay. But I would never try to say that I'm like fluent or skilled or good in Japanese. It's poor. It's just enough to still understand a lot of stuff and say lots of stuff, but it's not like a real solid conversational level or anything like that. Eat lunch. Yeah, someone said eat lunch. I'm gonna go eat lunch, but I need to find out where I am first, because I don't know if I have to walk all the way back to where I came, where I came from, walk all the way back to California. How did you study it? In the beginning, it was the same way I studied Korean, by books. Although Japanese had much more books, higher quality books than there were for Korean at the time. Lots of books, and study it like crazy. Listen to as much Japanese that I can. That time, that was TV shows. And I had a lot of podcasts too in Japanese. And then I had stories, like I would read books in Japanese that came with audio files that you would read, and then translations along with that, textbooks. And then the main thing I did is practice it every day. I joined, at the time there were, that was when there were still lots of chat rooms for language learning. These days, I don't think there are any like chat room language learning that are really big anymore. But at that time, there were some websites that had open chats where you could just join and practice with other people. And I would do that, and I'd find Japanese friends online, and then I would talk with them on Skype chat, not voice chat, just chatting. And then I would talk with them on MSN Messenger. Anyone remembers that? So the Hotmail had MSN Messenger built into it, and they deleted that. Everything's gone. But yeah, I had lots of friends on there. I lost all my friends because they deleted it suddenly, and I didn't even know. But I did that a lot. So I was like practicing reading and writing it hours every single day. So that's how I did it. When's the next Korean meetup? In Korea? Probably next year. At the soonest, it'll be next summer. There will definitely not be another meetup before next summer, because one, I'm not going to be in Korea long enough to have a meetup. And two, one, I didn't have a second reason. Surian says, you are fun and cute. It's easy to talk to you. Like, I don't feel uncomfortable watching your live. Thank you. SY says, is it true Japanese and Korean share a lot of similar words? 60% of their vocabulary came from Chinese, both languages. So 60%, and that number is, everyone will tell you a different number. There's no one actually knows, because it depends what words you're including and everything, and there's no official number. But about anywhere from 50, 60, 70. I think the real answer is somewhere close to 60. But anyway, they have the same vocabulary because they're both from Chinese. Just like English shares vocabulary with other languages through Latin. Although it's more technical than that, they actually do share common ancestor, I believe, too. But yeah, it's just like, English and those other languages, not Korean and Japanese, as far as we know. But yeah, Korean and Japanese have 60% of their vocabulary in common. Pronunciation will be different. Sometimes you might recognize a word. You're like, oh, sounds like this word. It might be that word because it's from Chinese. Okay, I'm just going to get to the main road here, and then I'll stop my live stream, because I can't search my map. I can't check Google until after I figure out where I am. I think here's safe. Here's good. I don't know where I have to walk, but there's a bus stop over there, so I'm going to slowly walk there. Nicki Minaj asks, how did you overcome jet lag? I was going to call you that. I hope you don't mind. By making sure I'm eating at the right times. So I wake up, I'll have a small breakfast like I normally would, or nothing. Very small breakfast, but then I'd have a big lunch. That's my thing. And make sure I'd eat a big lunch at lunchtime. Even if I'm not hungry, I eat a lunch. And then having a really small dinner, and then not eating any snack after that, just to help my body adjust to the new times when I'm eating. But I think eating is a really big part of it. And then the other one is sleeping. Do not take a nap during the daytime, even if you're exhausted, even if you say, oh, I'm just going to sleep 20 minutes. Nope, because your body will take that 20 minutes and your brain will feel like you slept, like that's your night sleep. It's not going to reset your clock. It's going to say, oh, you only slept 20 minutes last night. I'm going to be really tired today. Meanwhile, it's like in the middle of the day. Your brain, the next day again, it's going to think, okay, now it's nighttime. Now I'm really going to sleep. It's just going to make you exhausted. So do not take a nap outside of the regular time that you would go to sleep. So that means if your flight arrives in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're exhausted, you do not sleep until it's nighttime when you normally would go to bed. At least wait until like 8 or 9 p.m. Otherwise, it's just going to reset. So it'll just take longer for your body to get adjusted. Okay, I think that's enough. I see a bus stop here. I don't know what bus I'm taking. I don't even know if this is a bus I can take, but we'll try it. Thank you everyone for coming. I will see you again maybe in 2 weeks. I'll do another, we'll start my live classes again. We'll do our, I'll put a vote up if I'm going to be doing that. We'll learn some new stuff. And I will see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.